Leila de Lima is free. It is only a temporary freedom because she is only out on bail. But after 6 years and 9 months in detention in Camp Crame, the former senator, former Justice Secretary, former Human Rights Commission chair can finally go home. Good afternoon and welcome to Rappler. Today is Monday, November 13, 2023, and you are following Rappler's special coverage of the last remaining Leila de Lima case. My name is John Neri. Rappler reporters Lian Buon and Jairo Boliedo have been covering the hearing at the RTC in Muntinlupa and its aftermath. And now they are headed to Camp Crame as Senator de Lima prepares to leave the cramped quarters that served as her detention area since February 2017. We will be talking to them shortly. Senator de Lima is expected to post bail today. The court set bail at 300,000 pesos. With me here in the Rappler studio today is Attorney Tony Lavinia, the former Dean of the Ateneo School of Government and President of the Movement Against Disinformation. More important, he is a co-counsel of the former senator in this and the other two cases, and was in the courtroom earlier when the order came down. Welcome, Dean Tony.
Good afternoon.
First things first, where is Senator Leila now, and when can we expect her to actually leave Camp Crame?
She should be back in Camp Crame now because we left at the same time. And I got here already, so it took an hour to come here. Would have taken her also an hour
From Muntinlupa, yes.
From Muntinlupa to Crame. So she should be in Camp Crame now. Her bail papers have been processed. I assume they're now paying the bail, and the order has been issued. It will be issued soon. When that happens, that will be brought to Crame to be served to the warden there, who will then execute it. I know there are procedures within Crame to release a prisoner, in particular a medical test. Of course, she has to pack up, all of those things. So we should expect anytime this evening, it's hard to say, 7 to 9 p.m. It's probably a safe window. But for sure, she will sleep on her own bed tonight.
Okay, I just want to be sure for those of us who are still a little paranoid about the twists and turns of our justice system, is there a possibility that she won't leave tonight, but maybe tomorrow?
There should be no possibility because it's early enough. I mean, if the order came at 6 p.m., right? Then the banks would have been closed, and but I don't think that applies to a detention center. A detention center is open 24 hours. The court would be open at only up to 6 o'clock. But I think everything within the court has already been done. So I suspect all of this will be done. Everyone wants to get this done. I talked to her jailers who were all smiling, and they said, "Oh, this is the last time." I said, "Oh, we love her, but we want her to go." Because, it is 7 years. Another day.
That's right.
Is really too much.
You were at the courtroom earlier. How would you describe Senator Leila de Lima's demeanor?
I talked to her before and after. Before she was tense, I was kind of teasing her already. Let's plan the trip to Rome because Father Albert Alejo is there, and we'll welcome him and give her a retreat. But he said, "Don't say that, don't say that," because you don't want to be jinxed. But so I was there, saw her face when the judge, in the Philippines, we don't have this drama of this long decision being read by a judge. The judge simply said, the motion to reconsider the order denying bail to the accused is granted. Meaning to say, I'm now granting you bail, Senator de Lima and others also here. So, and the room applauded. We're not supposed to applaud it with the lawyers, but we applauded, shouted, and clapped. And she just said, "Thank you, God."
Did the judge hand out the actual order, or did you get it from the clerk of court?
No,
or
they're from the clerk of court. The judge read it, just the dispositive portion.
Okay.
Of now the order, the motion is granted, and right after that, the lawyers got copies from the court. There's a bit of drama because this was not scheduled.
This hearing?
This the order
Okay.
to grant the reconsideration, the motion for consideration. This was the hearing was for another thing, a procedural thing about one of the accused, not even about Senator De Lima, about why other accused were not included. So it was a very technical hearing.
But I remember you're very active on social media, and I saw one of your posts. You took a picture of the many reporters and cameramen on
There
the
was a
steps.
buzz.
Yeah, and then you said, is there anything happening?
There was a buzz that something might be happening, right? I certainly have no knowledge of what the judge was going to do, but there was this buzz. I mean, an anticipation, which has happened before. I mean, even in this case, John, our hearts have been broken by this case so many times.
That's right,
To be
yes.
honest, by the judicial system, the prosecutorial system, by Congress, right? So, but hope springs eternal, and you just have to hope, because it's the only thing that will make you fight if you have hope. So we're hopeful, but we didn't know, to be honest. I mean, not the lawyers. None of the lawyers know that this was coming, right? In my case, I do know the history of the judge, a very competent judge, a very honest judge. We actually teach in one school together, but never discussed this case with him, of course. And he's a great judge, and he's an independent thinking judge. So I kind of have confidence with the judge, and I have much more confidence in the judicial system now than a few years back. But having said that, I didn't know what the judge was going to do. So when the judge, after disposing of the technical issue, suddenly said, I have a resolution on the motion for reconsideration for bail, it's like there was a hush. This is it, right? This is it. But you don't know whether it's granted or denied.
Yeah.
If it's denied, it's another at least 2 to 3 years in jail while the case is still being heard. And then the tense moment was then the judge kind of signaled to his clerk of court, bring the
order.
The order, but the order was just being printed. I think wasn't so. I think the judge, that was also smart. So
that's why he called for a recess.
Yes, he called for it. So also there would be no leakage, right? Because if you printed it ahead of time, easily there could have been leakage. So there was no leakage. Came in, you could see it was a very 69 pages. 69 pages.
I haven't read it, but I've seen some portions on social media. It seems like the language is definitive.
Very definitive.
But isn't it...
And detailed.
But isn't it, to meet the requirements of granting bail, the judge has to find that the evidence is not strong?
That is what he found. What he did was he went through the witnesses, what they said. He went, of course, to the witnesses that recanted. That's important. He went to look at the physical evidence and said none of this can be used to convict Senator De Lima. So, therefore, there is no strong evidence against him, which is the only requirement. For bail, you don't have to be found not guilty, right? You only have to be found that there is no strong evidence against you. Although that obviously lays down the basis for an acquittal later on. So, Judge Gito here did a very thoroughly, very scholarly, based on jurisprudence, really an unassailable order to release Senator Leila.
By the way, did we hear from the Department of Justice? Did they respond or?
Not to this. Not to this case. Not to this order. It was a strange thing, and we're all laughing at, including the judge, because there was only one prosecutor. Usually there's 3 to 5 of them. So the judge was
Maybe
saying,
maybe
is this one against all or all against one?
Maybe the DOJ also heard the same buzz.
Maybe they are the same bus, and it's hard for them to, you know. That reminds me, though, I have to say this, John, and you know, and we know it's a great day. We know people are happy, but think about this: a person has been in jail for nearly 7 years. You know, more than 6.5 years, in fact. And at the end of it, she's ordered release because there is no strong evidence against her. That was true from day one, right? And you know,
And she filed a petition for bail early.
And before that, a habeas petition in the Supreme Court. Before that, of course, in the Department of Justice, you know, several judges, diba?
That's right.
So for me, and in the statement, the movement against information is quite strong about this. It's crucial to always say this, that this is actually a failure of the justice system, in the sense that it took us nearly 7 years to free Senator Leila. So, and there are other people. The reason why I stress it with other people, I have clients like that, who are accused of different things, especially activists accused of illegal possession of firearms, planted evidence, you know, I mean, things like that. And they stay in jail for 5, 10, 15 years, right? And then eventually they get acquitted. So I think it's important for us in the legal system, and those of us who are helping, I help in the judicial system, train judges, etc., to actually think that what are the ways we can do to make sure that what happened to Senator Leila, which I think in the end is what is clear to me, is a political prosecution, not an evidence-based prosecution, but a political prosecution under the Duterte government. Let's call a spade here, should never happen again.
In fact, Senator De Lima, in her first statement, gave thanks to the Marcos administration for not interfering in the process. Would that be the other side of what you just said, that it was a political case from the start?
Yes, but there's a caveat there, which is that Senator Leila did never try to negotiate a political conclusion to her case, like being released for political reasons, either with Duterte. I think he had a chance with Duterte also to do that, or with Marcos. He didn't do that. Took all the legal steps, but the good thing is the Marcos government, the Secretary of Justice under Marcos, Secretary Rimulya, did not intervene and let the judicial process play its out.
Dean, we have Lian Buan on the line, live from Camp Crame. Hello, Lian. What time did you get there? And is Senator Lima also there already?
We got here a little under 10 minutes ago, pero pagdating namin ay nandito na siya. Sorry, technical difficulty. Pagdating namin ay nandito na siya sa Camp Crame, nakapasok na siya. Hinihintay na lang namin na siya ay makakalabas. And I think some reporters are convening at a nearby hotel kasi doon mangyayari ang press conference. But we're waiting. It shouldn't be too long before she goes out because her lawyers were prepared with the bail bond na required sa kanila. The last time I talked to them was just last Friday. Nag-ready na sila ng 1 million nga in the maximum. Pero they were also ready to file a motion to reduce the amount if it comes to more than 1 million. But to their pleasant surprise, 300,000 pesos each lang yung bail bond na sinet ni Judge Energito. And I overheard one of them saying kanina na the 300,000 bail bond amount is very fair. Kaya natuwa rin yung De Lima team because of that.
Lian, what's your best guess? When will Senator De Lima be actually able to leave Camp Crame after going through medical and all that? Oh, sorry. We'll fix the connection. Okay. While we fix the connection, Dean. Oh, there.
naririnig ko
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Oh, all I need to say is the magic word Dean, and then you can hear us, Lian. Lian, what is your best guess for when Senator De Lima will finally be able to leave Camp Crame after going through medical checkup and so on?
Well, it's 5:30 now. I would assume that tapos na yung bail process nila, no? Kasi 4:30 ang closing ng court. And they did get a head start kanina. Immediately after the judge said the court has granted bail, lahat sila ay umalis na kumaripas papalabas ng courtroom to start processing the bail bond sa cashier sa Muntinlupa RTC. So it shouldn't be too long. I think it will just depend on how fast the bureaucracy of PNP Custodial Center, how fast they can clear her. But sorry, my feedback lang. But it shouldn't be too long. So we're waiting for her to get out of Camp Crame. So siguro maybe in the next hour she'll be out of Camp Crame.
And then you expect her to proceed to that hotel for the press conference?
Yes, we expect her to proceed to the hotel. That's what we've been hearing from the team. In fact, nag-convene na doon yung ibang miyembro ng media. We were also notified na doon na pupunta.
Dean, if you have any questions, just feel free to ask away. Lian, were you able to read the order? Anything there that struck you?
No, actually, John, I'm sorry. No, I haven't read the 69-page order. All I read was the dispositive portion, yung last page. Kasi nandun ako sa labas mismo ng courtroom kanina. Nakakatawa nga kami kasi kaming mga naiwan sa labas, our ears were literally pressed to the glass door and we thought we heard the word granted pero parang ay hindi pa pala. So I was with Senator De Lima's longtime staff. Tas kinakabahan sila, so ako pa yung parang nangaasar sa kanila na relax. So we thought we heard the word granted but walang nangyaring masyado mula sa loob ng court. But when the applause erupted, we knew that positive news had been given at labas agad yung mga lawyer ni Senator De Lima to tell us na the court had granted bail. And Attorney Rolly Peoro gave me the last page yung dispositive.
Okay.
And that's all that I could read because I've been from the courtroom to Crame.
Yung granted na yun, yung mga first motions yun, yung mga, what the hearing, Lian, was actually not for, kasi yung order naman didn't have an hearing eh. He could have released that yesterday, next week, or any day, di ba? It was for these other procedural things on the Bukayo case. So, kaya yun, maraming mga granted this, granted that, granted this. And then, yun, sinabi niya na, I have this order now, and it's granted. The motion is granted.
Yeah. Lian has been covering both.
Correct, kasi radical yung shift ng mood ng mga
Sorry, go ahead, Lian.
Radical yung shift ng mood ng mga tao. Radical yung shift ng mood ng mga tao, both her friends and her staff, because as Dean Tony Lavinia said, this hearing was not even for the motion for reconsideration for the petition for bail. It was for the motion to quash of co-accused former Bucor Chief Franklin Bukayo. So there was managed hopes going here, but the hope was coming from, they've waited for this for a long time. In their estimate, dapat June pa nag-grant yung bail. It was also a new judge. Judge Genergito has also handed them minor wins in the past. So there's a little bit of positivity from their end. Pero kanina nung nasa courtroom kami, like chill lang, relax lang, because for all we know, it's just an ordinary hearing day. Sabi nga nung mga constant support group niya, sila Prof. Socrates, sila Ging Deles, sila Professor Winnie Monso. They're so relaxed kasi they've been doing this for the last 6 years and 9 months. So for all we know, it was an ordinary hearing. And then, nag-court recess, and they found it a little bit strange na may recess. Lumabas si Attorney Peoro, and then he told us, the judge said, pag-reconvene namin, magbababa na siya ng decision sa motion for bail. So that was the first concrete guarantee that there would be a decision for the petition for bail. So nakita ko yung mukha ng mga staff niya. These are long-time staff from the Senate. Radical shift from being relaxed to being super, super nervous. But fortunately, it didn't take long for Judge Energito to issue the decision. So hindi sila masyadong ninervyos ng matagal because not long after, good news na yung dumating sa kanila.
Sinabi ko lian kay John na our hearts have been broken so many times in this case, di ba? Kaya manage hopes. Maganda yung sinabi mo, manage hopes. But
Yeah.
finally, at least for this one, tapos na ito. I'm actually kind of sure that this is done. Of course, there's going to be a continuation of the trial. But given what the judge did here to examine all the evidence of the prosecution, what is there to try, di ba? But we'll see what the judge does. We have to respect the judicial process, and it's quite tedious.
Lian, you've been not only reporting on the substance of the case, but also on the drama of it. No? And today has been really a dramatic day, you know? In fact, a historic day. I've seen some international observers already saying, you know, the Philippines has just released its most prominent political prisoner. I know that you'll be staying there until Senator De Lima will be released. We will check with you again. But for now, thank you, Lian. Thank you. Dean, we were talking about how, I'm actually struck by what you said. No? So we are celebrating freedom, even a temporary kind of freedom for Senator De Lima. And we need to pay tribute to, you know, a good judgment, an independent judge. And yet you're saying, but that if you take a step back, this is really a failure of justice. Part of the reason, I think, is the presentation of evidence of the prosecution was finished, right? I mean, it took them years before this bail motion was granted. Why did it take so long? You said there were many judges. And so
There's a structural issue around this. I mean, because this is not just Senator De Lima, but as I said, many others have had to deal with that. I mean, which is that the Constitution requires or says that bail is not a matter of right if you're accused of a capital punishment, unless the evidence of guilt is strong. And our Supreme Court has kind of ruled that means all the evidence of guilt must be presented before the court decides that bail should be granted.
Okay.
That's fair, but there should be a limit, right? The prosecution should be given only 6 months, 1 year at most. I think beyond 1 year, you detain a person beyond 1 year, and then you acquit the person or release a person on bail after 1 year. It's already an injustice, you know. So I think there's a structural part here, which regardless of the president, regardless of the politics, is a problem of the legal system. And I hope the Supreme Court has some power to deal with this. I hope they'll address it, as they are a very reform-minded court under Chief Justice Alex Quezmundo. So I hope they'll do that.
In fact, the Supreme Court, I'm not sure if it was a usual or an unusual move, reminded
Yes,
the lower
lasted
court
so
that you
long.
only have, I think they gave them like 2 more months, 6 months or
9
something.
months. Or under a year, certainly. Now that when it was transferred to another judge, there has to be a limit. And that's the other thing which is not structural, unique to this case, that this is a political case. That's why we're saying it's correct that the foreign press is saying it's the release of the most prominent political prisoner in the Philippines. Most prominent in the sense that she's a opposition politician under Duterte, and now she's been released. Because the part here that's very specific to Senator De Lima is that, again, this was a political prosecution. In fact, it did not start with the Department of Justice. It started with the House of Representatives and then move on to the Senate, but mostly House of Representatives. The Senate, where, of course, it was their fellow senators, so they didn't do a lot of that kind of attacks on her. But it started with the House of Representatives and the way the Committee on Justice did its work, which laid down the basis for these charges, which is, as I said, political. And that's why many judges along the way inhibited themselves, or we asked to inhibit, but clearly they favored the prosecution. And so we ended up with several judges here. The last judge that denied this turned out to have a conflict of interest from our point of view and did not disclose it. So that meant 2 or 3 more years of detention for Senator De Lima, or at least more than a year after, because she got acquitted for that other case. So here, that's the other part. That's not structural. But there's also structural part in that the Supreme Court have actually said, in the case of Broca versus Enrile, have actually said that when a prosecution is tainted with politics, that prosecution is void from the very beginning, right? And this is the case in this case. It's very clear that this was a political prosecution, should never have been filed. Even the cases that were filed here were the wrong cases. The accusation is Senator De Lima was bribed by the convicts so that she could run for Senate and they could have space to run their businesses. But that was not the charge against her.
Yeah.
Bribery, because bribery is bailable. They charge her for conspiring to sell drugs and for trafficking against drugs. Never in the allegation are they saying that she's a drug pusher. And we know that. She's not a drug pusher. Not even the DOJ said that. But that's what they charge her for. Because if they charge her with bribery,
then
she would have been in prison, because she would have bailed. Probably it would have been dismissed by then Ombudsman Conchita Morales, because that would have been in the Ombudsman if it were bribery.
Dean, we can let's get back to this topic of political part of the process. But on the line with us is Rappler reporter Jairo Boliedo. We saw him earlier this afternoon. I mean, he was all over the Muntinlupa Regional Trial Court hearing. He is now in Novotel in Quezon City, where a press conference will be held. Jairo, it's a dramatic day of coverage. What would you say would be the highlights of your coverage?
Yeah, thank you for asking, John. Yes, tama ka, no? Mga 12 p.m. or before 12 p.m. actually, ay nasa Muntinlupa City Hall of Justice na tayo, kung saan nandoon yung Muntinlupa City Regional Trial Court Branch 206 na siyang nagdinig nitong kaso ni former Senator Leila de Lima. Before that, before magsimula or before dumating si former Senator Leila de Lima, ay nag-conduct na ng mass si Father Robert Reyes sa harap nung City Hall of Justice, at doon din yung mga supporters nila. So isa yon sa mga highlight. Pero nakita din nating highlight yung pagdating pa lang ni former Senator Leila de Lima. More than usual, medyo parang uplifted yung spirit niya. In fact, nilapitan siya ni Father Robert Reyes para i-bless muna siya bago siya pumasok doon sa courtroom. At habang nasa courtroom sila ay patuloy na nagcha-chant at patuloy yung ongoing na mass doon sa labas ng City Hall of Justice. At after niya nga ma-announce na siya ay ginanat ng court yung kanyang petition for bail or motion for reconsideration sa kanyang petition for bail, ay nagkagulo na sa labas at talaga namang nakita natin na nag-iiyakan yung ilang sa mga supporters niya, masayang-masaya sila. At parang medyo naging dramatic pa siya ng konti kasi medyo bumuhos ng konti yung ulan. So habang nag-chant in support of her, yung mga supporters niya ay umuulan. Tapos nakita natin, binantayan natin yung paglabas ni former Senator Leila de Lima. Pinasalamatan niya yung mga kanyang pamilya, mga supporters niya. Pero isa sa mga noteworthy doon sa mga binanggit niya ay ang pagpapasalamat niya kay President BBM or President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. kung saan sinabi ni de Lima na nagpapasalamat siya sa Pangulo dahil doon sa pag-acknowledge at pagrespeto ng Pangulo doon sa independence ng Supreme Court at ng Korte natin dito sa kaso niya. So isa yun sa mga highlights, o yun yung mga importanteng highlights nitong naganap na coverage natin.
Jairo, did you notice any difference on the part of the DOJ, the prosecutors, under Duterte and then now under Marcos in the way they treated this case? Naisip ko kasi, doon sa mga pulis, naalala mo yung, there was a time na tuwing lumalabas si Senator De Lima, the policemen guarding her would not allow anyone to take a look, no? Talagang gwardyado, sarado yung... Pero parang now, I mean, they're a little more chill, parang they allow people to take pictures. I don't know whether that too is a reflection of the difference between the two administrations.
Yeah, we have to take note of this, John, that most of the prosecutors, especially the Prosecutor General, Benedicto Malcontento, is still a Duterte, in-appoint siya ni Duterte. He's still a Duterte appointee. But on how the prosecutors approach this case, I think it might be different, but could be summarized into this. The signals are confusing. There are mixed signals. In this case, in fact, kasi parang nagkaroon ng trajectory na parang into the positive trajectory na itong case ni former Senator Leila de Lima dahil nga parang nag-order na yung Supreme Court na madiliin na ito at tapusin within 9 months. After that, ay nag-order na rin o binaba na rin ng Branch 204 yung acquittal ni former Senator Leila de Lima at dire-diretso niya. That caused the legal team to file the petition for bail, and they're really in high spirits at that time, back in June, and they were really hopeful na magagrant na itong petition for bail. But then again, nagkaroon ng medyo mixed signals itong prosecutors. Meron silang mga, kumaga parang na-surprise yung legal team ni former Senator Leila de Lima with the way they acted, especially when they asked Judge Alcantara, the second judge that handled the case after Buenaventura for this last case, to inhibit himself because they're saying that De Lima has been acquitted by the same judge, and it's really weird for them. It's their argument that the same judge will handle the third and last case of De Lima. So yun, mixed signals yung pinaparating ng prosecutors.
Thanks for reminding us about that. No, that's right. No, I mean that motion that they filed to inhibit for Judge Alcantara to inhibit, people started thinking, wow, this will add more months, more years to the case. But then, well, this is what happened. What do you expect Senator De Lima and her lawyers to say during the press conference? What kind of signals naman do you think they will be sending?
Yeah, we'll be definitely asking about the Marcos administration's role in this facilitation of the petition for bail. Many people are really anticipating what would De Lima say in more details about the Marcos administration's role in the facilitation of this petition for bail, most especially that we saw the difference between how the two administrations approached the case of De Lima. We saw how the Duterte administration really, if they always have the chance, they would block any attempt of the De Lima team to attain justice, whereas in the Marcos administrations, like what I've told earlier, there are mixed signals. And based on in the report that I wrote back in May, I talked to reliable sources, specifically one of the lawyers of former Senator Leila de Lima, Attorney Jojo Garcia, and one of the close persons between the De Lima and the Marcos camps, where they told me that the Marcos administration really wanted De Lima to attain justice and all, especially that there were fillers from from Senator Amy Marcos because De Lima and Amy Marcos have this relationship that goes back to the BK or Kabataang Barangay pa back in the 70s, 80s, ganyan. And ganun yung naging facilitation, ganun yung nangyari sa kaso na to. So, inaabangan natin kung ano yung magiging reaction ni former Senator Leila de Lima dito sa Marcos ties. Inaabangan din natin, syempre, yung magiging mahalagang development sa kaso ni former Senator Leila de Lima, ano mga abangan nila. Kasi hindi pa naman tapos ang trial. Let us just remind our viewers that the trial is still ongoing, that the de Lima or former Senator Leila de Lima is out of bail lang. Hindi pa natatapos yung kaso niya. But then again, just like what Attorney Garcia told us earlier, they expect the case to be finished by January 2024. So yun, the Marcos ties, anong ina-expect nila sa mga susunod at kailan siya lilipad. Of course, inaabangan ng lahat yung pagdalaw at pagbisita ni former Senator Leila de Lima sa kanyang ina na nandoon sa Iriga City. So those are the latest developments, or those are the developments that we're gonna ask earlier, and we're expecting de Lima and her team to discuss later in the press conference. In fact, we're also expecting former Senator Risa Hontiveros to attend the press conference. We saw some of her staff here, and I asked one of the staff, and he told me that former Senator Risa Hontiveros would also be here during the press conference.
Jairo and Dean, I'd like to ask you the same question, if you don't mind, no? So, yung the Marcos factor, how much do you think that played into this this particular decision?
From a legal point of view, not a factor.
Okay.
Because this is all done above board. Senator Leila actually did not conduct negotiations with any politician to get this decision. She was very clear. She wanted vindication, legal vindication. So, from that point of view, no. But as Jairo said, big thing in this country is when the executive lets the judiciary be.
Okay.
And, not interfere, not do calls to judges or others. And we know that the Marcos government signaled that this case must be decided on the merits, and we will not get involved, right? So, so I will leave it at that as an officer of the court, as a sociologist and as a law professor. I can say that law is never done in a vacuum. There's always a political context, but this is more about legal vindication. And let's not diminish the importance of the day by saying, si Marcos ito, dahil nito ba. I think we're grateful that the Marcos government did allow the process to unfold as it should. I think we should be grateful for the Supreme Court for the signals it gave to the judges here that this has been going on for so long. And most of all, I think we have to be grateful to an independent, courageous, and brilliant judge. As a professor, I was like amazed. I'm a fast reader, so just 10 minutes read the 69 pages, but I know what to read in a decision. And it's an incredibly good decision that's based on the facts and based on the law.
I guess, Jairo, if I can tweak my question to you, no, you said earlier that the government, the executive, has been sending mixed signals. But what I really wanted to know is whether those signals, from your perspective, from your reporting, had an impact on the judge, on Judge Hito.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say if those, mixed signals from the executive really impacted the way Judge Henry Hito decided on the case. But if we're gonna look at the track record na lang of the judge, it's important to note that this judge has always been fair to De Lima. Let's just put into that perspective, because if we're gonna look at the past decisions involving this judge and De Lima, it's the same judge, Judge Hito, who allowed De Lima to go to visit her ailing mom in 2019, and it was also the same judge who junked and dismissed the case, the contempt case against De Lima and one of her lawyers. So yeah, kung titingnan lang natin siya sa legal perspective and sa track record, I think we could say that this judge, Henry Hito, has always been fair to De Lima.
Thank you, Jairo. When do you expect the press conference to start? Sorry, did you hear me, Jairo? Um, when do you expect the
I'm
press
sorry,
conference
I
to
didn't
start?
catch that.
When do you expect the press briefing to start?
Yeah, I think
Just
we're
when?
expecting the press conference to start in yeah. In a few minutes, I think 6:30 would be our best guess because as of now, De Lima is still processing or finishing her process to bail. As of the moment, I think before I stepped into the front of the camera, I was told that De Lima is still on the process of checking in all the final processes of leaving the Camp Crame. So those are the requirements needed before you leave the detention center. Aside from, of course, from the court order that De Lima was able to secure in the court earlier.
Jairo, it's been already a long day for you, and it won't end just yet. We will check back with you later, Jairo. Thank you very much. Now we have Carlos Conde, senior researcher of Human Rights Watch. He has, of course, been following this very prominent case and has been calling for Senator De Lima's release. Kaloy?
Good evening. Happy day.
Happy day, Kaloy. Thank you for making time to join us. So first of all, what do you make of the order from the judge?
Well, I'm no lawyer, so I don't want to get into the legal stuff here. But I agree with what Dinton has said about this being a victory of the legal process, a victory of in fact, a vindication of Leila de Lima's insistence that the process takes its course, that she will be judged according to the evidence presented, and I think in this sense, that position prevailed, and we're happy for her. But also that reminds me of your question earlier about where does this stand in terms of the political environment now with President Marcos and all of that, and whether all of this has anything to do with the judgment of the court. I don't want to speculate much on that, but let me put it this way, though. I don't think something like this would ever have happened under a Duterte administration. We can make of whatever supposed improvements that have happened under the Marcos administration. But the fact is that, as I think Maria Ressa herself has mentioned, when the case against her was ruled upon, this fog of fear or uncertainty, or fear has been not really lifted but sort of dissipated. And so for that to happen, and for this verdict, for this ruling, for this ruling to happen, I think it's important to note that it happened when judges in courts are not as under assault, under pressure as they were presumably during the Duterte's time.
Kaloy, I want to ask you about the timing. I don't know if it's just coincidental, but this order granting the motion for bail can be seen as a defeat for former President Duterte. As you yourself said just a while ago, it's hard to imagine this happening under the Duterte presidency. But this defeat, comes, after successive, shall we say, pushbacks against Vice President Duterte and the confidential funds, the calling out by the House of Representatives, calling out of former President Duterte, and so on. Should we read anything into that?
Well, people will not be. I don't think we can blame people if they read anything into that. Personally, and this is a personal position of mine, I've always, believed that the eventual freedom of Leila de Lima and even her acquittal is just a matter of time. Obviously, the political situation has a lot to do with that. I mean, if you look at, I mean, we can speculate a little bit, but if you look at the, what's happening in the political space, where supposedly there's this falling out, quote unquote, between the Marcoses and the Dutertes, that can also fit this ruling can also fit into that. I've always maintained, again, personally, that the only way Ms. De Lima can be freed, using any kind of political pressure is when, open warfare already manifests between the Dutertes and the Marcos. And we're seeing some of that already. I'm not saying, though, that Ms. De Lima is granted bail because, Martin Romualdez and Sara Duterte are at each other's throats. But it's not really difficult to imagine that can have a factor here. But also, I think the sense among many Filipinos that at least the Marcos administration is pushing back against the Duterte clique. And this could be read as a result of that, definitely.
How will you respond to what Dean Tony said earlier about, this is a happy day because she gets to go home, but we're actually marking the tragedy of the Philippine judicial system, that it took almost 7 years for a good judge to finally grant her motion for bail. So this is not actually a triumph of justice.
Oh, no, definitely. No. I don't think this is the triumph of justice at all. In fact, we can say that Ms. De Lima, I mean, the joy that we feel with the bail granted to her should not diminish, the fact that the justice system in the Philippines, and I hope Dean Tony will agree, has been, bastardized since 2016, probably even earlier, to try to settle a score against Ms. De Lima. The way that this brutal state machinery has been used against her from 2016 onwards, I mean, that is a very, very damning indictment of the whole justice system in the Philippines. And this is just something, I think coming to this point is inevitable for Ms. De Lima, because the evidence, the testimony, the recantation of the testimony, the evidence is just so, it's just so big and so, significant that a judge who is worth his salt cannot afford to ignore those evidence.
I would agree with that. That I think no judge would have convicted Senator De Lima, but with the politics interference of politicians or the powers that be, many judges simply refuse to deal with it, right? And simply inhibited, ran away, would punt it forward, etc. And so that's why this case has lasted so long for that reason. Again, I repeat this concept of a political prosecution, meaning to say there is no evidence, but you still prosecute because you want to make a point. In this case, it's a political point, political position. In the case, for example, I have clients that are LUMAD teachers, LUMAD students, absolutely no evidence, and always acquitted whenever a case is moved forward. But for 3-5 years, they're on the run, they're arrested, they're red tag, Kaloy would know this. Lots of detainees, including those that have been convicted, political detainees, very minimal or no evidence at all. Many get acquitted, by the way, if not at the regional trial court level, at the appellate level. I always tell people, when I tell my students, when I encourage them to be human rights lawyers, they will ask me, bakit pa? Diba? And I actually say, we win 90% of our cases. But it's sometimes very fearing because you'd win it 5 years, 10 years later. You let them out later. So it's something to actually address. And I'm actually happy with the current court now. I think Chief Justice Alex Gesmundo has been very focused on what reforms are necessary to deal with this, to deal with search warrants that are not properly exercised, detention prisoners like this, because we have to really fix this, because without access to justice, you can imagine Senator De Lima being treated like this, a senator of the Republic, a former Secretary of Justice, a former chair of the Human Rights, the Commission on Human Rights, treated like this. You know what I mean?
You know, I have a question for both you, Kaloy, and Dean Tony. You know, Duterte did not do this alone, right?
Yeah.
Can we talk about enablers? Who enabled this case to run on for almost 7 years? Kaloy first, and then Dean Tony.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are two types of enablers here, quite apart from each other. One is those people in government who actively, I think, help. I mean, we're talking about Vitaliano Aguirre, for instance. Many of the congressmen, some of them are still in power to begin with, that, you know, sort of grease the rails for this sham of a political persecution to happen. I mean, those are, you know, I would say active enablers. And then, of course, looking at it, you know, broadly, there is the public, the general public, the Duterte diehards who enabled, you know, not just the persecution of De Lima, but created an atmosphere where, you know, anybody who deigned to counteract what the Duterte government was doing could be easily harassed, intimidated, trolled by these Duterte diehards. And they're still there. So these are really, you know, it is. And also another type of enabling, I think, that happen is that when you have a justice system, when you have a criminal justice system that's so dysfunctional, that's so, you know, broken, that people in it that are supposed to do their jobs to make sure that justice is delivered are basically, you know, non-existent. They basically stop doing their jobs. That's a type of enabling as well. So, you know, everything conspired against Ms. De Lima, and we see the result of that in the past close to 7 years.
I'll bring this conversation even further, John and Kaloy, which is how do we hold them accountable, the enablers? So let's start with Congress. You know what I mean? I think it's important to expose the people in Congress, and it's all on video, that actually started the whole process, and hold them accountable. I think Congress itself, the House of Representatives itself, may want to do its own mea culpa investigation of itself and how its processes were weaponized against an opposition politician. The Senate should also do that. The Senate, not the Senate itself for itself, because I would say at best they were silent enablers in that they could have defended you even more than they actually did. But the Senate could actually investigate the Department of Justice, for example, and how the Department of Justice from Secretary Aguirre onward handled this this case.
If I may sorry.
Yeah, sure. And just finish. And then that would be the I think that the really important part here. I know that Secretary De Lima, Senator De Lima, as forgiving as she is, you know, one thing about Senator De Lima that I've noticed through the years is she grew in wisdom in the detention center. She's not bitter. She's not full of hate. She grew in wisdom. Really, I saw that through the last 6 years that I have been involved here. But the third is this enabling by trolls. In fact, this is how the movement of against this information got involved in this case. I was already involved because I convened or co-convened the committee, the Free Leila de Lima committee, as an ordinary lawyer and as a political figure, etc. So I was convener of that. But we brought in the movement against information because we saw how this information, this is literally a good example of how this information was used to trolls, to influencers. In fact, I can now say we did go to Senator De Lima and said, do you want us to do anything against those maligned you, those that libeled you, those that attacked you? And, that's still a discussion we're having with her. It is a decision she has to make because she is a compassionate and forgiving person. And I also don't want to take away from that, given what she went through in these 6 years. I mean, I think this is a grace that she got, probably didn't expect, but something to treasure also for her.
Well, if I may add, John, quickly, I was gonna say even that knowing Ms. De Lima, and we've met her a few times while in detention. She is a very forgiving person. She's not vindictive at all, and she's accepted, all of this, and she wants to move forward. And again, I'm speaking here on my own behalf as a citizen, not so much as an employee of Human Rights Watch. My personal view is that if I were her, I'm going to sue the hell out of a lot of people for what happened to her, because I don't think. And this goes back to what Dean said about the legislature. I don't think the Congress, the Senate, the House of Representatives will take it upon themselves to fix the very, very broken system that they have thrived in the last how many years. I believe that something stronger, like a civil suit or a criminal suit filed by the likes of De Lima against these people, is necessary for that correction to happen. I mean, these people cannot not be held accountable for these things. I mean, if they can do this to Ms. De Lima, imagine all of the things that are happening against ordinary citizens. I mean, every day we document cases of people, activists, not just activists, ordinary people suffering from the defects of the criminal justice system and are relegated to just accepting their fate because nobody dares to sue these people, to take them to court, to really punish them, hold them accountable. I think, in this sense, in fact, the fact that it's a very high-profile case that Ms. De Lima is, as one of the papers put it, the highest most famous political person in the Philippines, I think that will work in favor of, in the long run, fixing these problems, because the international community will be forced to take a look at all of these, and they'll say, oh, we've been giving money to the Philippine government to fix the judicial system, and yet they cannot even manage to make sure that the due process takes its course in the case of De Lima and many, many others. They need to act, and they need to put action on these things to fix the criminal justice system, the justice system in the Philippines.
In this case, I think Senator De Lima can take heart from a recent Supreme Court decision invalidating the contempt cases filed by or imposed by the Senate on formerly executives. It's an unusual. I understand it's an unusual decision because the political question doctrine has actually been expanded under the Constitution. But in this particular case, the Supreme Court found the Senate had overstepped its boundaries. So, for instance, if Senator De Lima were to file cases against some of the congressmen who had taken part in this orchestrated vilification of her using the House of Representatives, maybe that's something that she can look at. But speaking of the Supreme Court, I also want to put on the table that the Supreme Court of 2017-2018 was also an enabler, right? So you had this case. So Senator De Lima filed a case against with the Supreme Court, and twice the Supreme Court rejected her petition. And some of the dissents from Justice Antonio Carpio, from Justice Marvic Leonen were so strong. I mean, it was like, for instance, if I remember correctly, Justice Leonen's dissent, he just enumerated something like 22 instances when President Duterte said something directly related to the case against Leila de Lima. So in that particular case, and I think it was like an 8-6 decision, I think, I'm sorry to say, but the Supreme Court at the time, the majority, was itself an enabler.
Yeah, and when I teach that case, under constitutional law to Bill of Rights, you can see why. That's what I said earlier. Under the Constitution, we have the right to know what we are accused of, right? How can I defend myself if I don't know what I'm accused of? So she's accused of trafficking and accused of selling drugs, conspiracy to sell drugs, right? But there's nothing in the facts of that case, of the charges against her, which says that.
Yeah.
Right?
And
they
they're also-
only charged her with that so she could not be bailed out, because that's the only cases which have no... And the Supreme Court could have clearly seen that this is a violation. You're not being charged with the right charge. You should be charged with bribery and therefore be bailed out, right? And the Supreme Court did a procedural thing simply. The De Lima did not go to the right hierarchy of courts, etc. But they imagine if the court then decided that the right thing was to stop these cases from being pursued further, or for at least the cases to be done in the right way, which is to file bribery against her, because that's really what they're charging her. Again, I repeat, the charge has always been then Secretary De Lima allowing the drug lords to operate their business in exchange for money she used for her campaign. That has always been the narrative. That is bribery. There's no also proof about that, and that is certainly not true. I can say that with certainty. But even if it's true, that case is bribery. It's not, not
Drugs.
in anybody's wild imagination, including the prosecutors, are they saying that Senator De Lima is a drug pusher, because she's not.
And there were no drugs.
And there were no drugs.
There were
In
no
the first
drugs.
place, there were no drugs that they could
that they
point
could
to.
produce, yeah. That's
And there was eventually no money, because everyone recanted also that said they received money.
Yeah.
So what we call no corpus delicti in the crime.
No corpus delicti. Kaloy, I know that you've been sometimes critical of the diplomatic community, especially from Europe, as far as human rights protection in the Philippines is concerned. I understand that the diplomatic community was very forcefully for Senator De Lima here. No, I think they were present today, and they've been present in many of the hearings. So in a way, like what Jairo Boleto said earlier, the diplomatic community is also sending mixed signals. No, how do you think this case, the granting of the motion for bail, will impact on our relations with our allies in Western Europe, for instance?
Well, it's funny. It's interesting that you asked that, John, because the Philippines right now is under a microscope as far as the European Union is concerned, right? So, and the Leila de Lima case, in fairness to the diplomatic community, they have always raised this issue here in Manila, but also in Brussels. And when we do our meetings, for instance, in Brussels, it's always the case of De Lima that's on top of the list of concerns, and we have to give them credit for that. And the reason why often I'm critical of them is that just a kind of a side note here is that of course the Western Europeans, they make lots of promises, lots of commitments about human rights, and what we're doing is just to make sure that they stand up to that commitment in many ways. But in the case of De Lima, I think they have done what they could in terms of raising the profile of our case, in terms of raising the issue with the Philippine government. But of course, there are limits to what they can do. Obviously, diplomatic relations do not just hinge on one person. There are a lot of other factors to consider. But this will be definitely, a small feather in the cap of the Philippine government as it tries to improve its relations with the international community, with international actors. I think that with free trade negotiations, for instance, now renewed between the Philippines and the European Union, this will definitely be one of the issues that they will hold up as an example of how the Marcos administration is responding to the calls for improved human rights in the Philippines. Definitely, even if no matter how we argue that the politics has nothing to do with this decision, this is going to look good on the Marcos administration. And I suppose we can't begrudge them for that because, truth be told, if you compare the Marcos administration and the Duterte administration, there are improvements. I mean, just the fact alone that this administration is welcoming, inviting, for instance, the UN so-called special rapporteurs to come visit the Philippines. They've been coming in here one after the other, something that you never saw under the President Duterte administration, right? So, and that's important. They are holding dialogues, this government, although, of course, the quality of the dialogue remains to be seen, particularly from the government side, because there are still a lot of government officials, cabinet-level officials, who are still, not fully embracing the whole idea of human rights, and in fact are resisting calls for accountability. But the fact that they're meeting, the fact that they're engaging with the international actors, that's good. So, and this only raises the expectation for the Philippine government, for the Marcos administration to do more. So this is a bail. Next time, we should expect an acquittal from for Ms. De Lima. And on the other cases, for instance, we still have to see more improvements in other human rights issues. For instance, the drug war. The drug war is still happening, but in fairness, the number of deaths are quite low, but it's still happening. But more important than the fact that the number of deaths are low is the fact that accountability practically remains insignificant. So the challenge now for the Marcos administration is to follow through on these small kind of low-hanging fruits and try to do better in other aspects of accountability. And Mr. Marcos really finally, and this is something that the international actors have always wanted to happen, Mr. Marcos really needs to categorically stop the drug war violence because it's happening under his name. Even if we say that only 5 people are being killed every week, according to the monitoring of the University of the Philippines, that is still 5 people killed every week in under questionable circumstances. And once this drug war policy is effectively and categorically rescinded, I think that will redound to a better situation on the ground. I'll give you one specific example. Mr. Marcos, for the first time, I think, denounced the killing of a journalist publicly when Mr. Juan Jumalon was killed a few days ago. After he said that, came the statements by the DOJ, by the NBI, by all the other agencies of government. That's something that you rarely see. So it's important for the president to speak out about human rights. And we hope that he does follow through with this bail for Ms. De Lima.
And I would be remiss that in addition to the war against drugs, the attacks on environmental, human rights defenders using the Anti-Terror Act has got to stop, right? Because that is also a vestige of the mentality of the Duterte government, the anti-FLCAC, that our problem is internal. Now that the Marcos government and the Secretary of Defense has very clearly said that the problem is external and the problem we have to deal with is China, they also need to do that switch, that shift, because these are also really, terrible violations still happening on the ground as well. I know that because I lawyer for Luma teachers, Cordillera activists, environmental defenders that continue to be attacked.
A pair of questions for the two of you. What does this case tell us about how human rights organizations should conduct themselves or run a campaign in support of someone unjustly accused and is in jail? And Dean Tony, what does this case tell us about how to strengthen the hand of the courts, of the lower courts, where much of this is processed? Maybe Kaloy first, and then Dean Tony.
Well, this case really has, I think, a lot of lessons to impart to human rights organizations in terms of how they do campaigns. I mean, we're not just talking about speaking out publicly to the press, engaging in social media, doing documentation and all of that. But when you acknowledge that domestic accountability mechanisms, that the criminal justice system and the whole government is being used to commit grave human rights abuses, then of course, you still engage with them as much as you can, if you think you can get some meaningful results. But this only clearly, I think, illustrates the importance of engaging in the international arena in terms of advocacy, engaging international actors. UN, we're talking about the UN and its various mechanisms. The OHCHR and the UN's special procedures, they call them. That is important. And I've seen an uptick or an improvement in the way local domestic NGOs are engaging with the UN system. And that is something that's really, really important here. And it's not just the UN, but also with civil society organizations that are working in Geneva and also working with the UN in terms of highlighting these issues, documenting these issues, giving information. But also, doing advocacy by local civil society groups with the ICC, for instance. The ICC would never be able to conduct any sort of investigation in the Philippines without NGO or civil society, involvement, because they are not allowed to come here. And that's also one thing that Mr. Marcos should really change. And just a side note, DOJ Secretary Rimulya actually said a few weeks ago something that completely threw me, off, if I may say so, that he now considers, the suggestion that the ICC come to the Philippines and investigate. So that's a totally different line from before. But also, apart from the ICC, the diplomatic, member states of diplomatic blocs such as the EU and many other foreign blocs, they need to be engaged, because we keep forgetting that a lot of the resources that Philippine groups and even the Philippine government use to fix its problems as far as justice, human rights, social justice issues are actually coming from these foreign governments. We don't have a lot of money for LGBT rights, but a lot of these resources are coming in from foreign governments, especially the Western Europeans. And that needs to be sustained, because they're the ones that can be relied upon to really raise the case of human rights violations, and not among themselves, but with the Philippine government. And we see that regardless of our misgivings with GSP Plus, for instance, we see that as a very important mechanism to compel the Philippine government, the Philippine side, to respect and promote human rights. If anything, it can be used as a whip against the Philippine government to do better. So that's a really huge kind of, I think, improvement in the way human rights organizations, I'm not talking about just international organizations like ourselves, but also domestic human rights organizations are conducting themselves.
Thank you. Dean Tony?
The way I would summarize my answer and also to summarize the events of today, sana all. Sana all.
Hashtag sana all.
Yung hashtag natin dito kay Senator De Lima, sana all, Senator Leila. Just I want to reflect on my experience as a convener of the Free Leila De Lima Committee. This was the height of the Duterte government, I think. After 2 years, we were already convened, and we just meet regularly and expanded our ranks, raised the resources, although we don't need that much resources to continue the work. You have to be persistent, and those that are doing human rights work for specific people, specific individuals, for specific groups, like, again, the Lumad or indigenous peoples, no matter where the odds are against you, you have to persist and you have to reach out. important to have a very broad alliance for this. And, Senator Leila, in the end, really has the broadest alliance of political forces that are supporting her, that have supported her. And that has been a big thing, I mean. And so a broad alliance for that. That persistence, we saw that already in Senator Jock. Now we go back to Free Legal Assistance Group and all the different groups that fought Marcos in the very dark years when there was no coverage, there was no money, etc. And so we just have to do that in dark times. Now that the times are lighter, we even have to be more aggressive because then we have a chance to actually do these things. Now, there's a momentum around this. The fact that President Marcos will look good outside is something we can build on and tell President, look, he's going to APEC next week, right? I mean, he'll be congratulated for this by everyone in APEC, But you have to tell him that there are so many others that need to be released, like Senator Leila, or, those that, as I said, that have been attacked, that has to stop. Also, the war on drugs has to completely stop and not just have 5 or even 1 person killed a day. That is even not acceptable, right? So we have to continue that, and in better times, we should do more than in the darker times. The darker times, we persist. Diba? That's the first. On the legal system, there's really a lot of work that has to be done.
But how do we encourage the likes of
well, actually,
Chito?
to be honest, we have very good regional trial court judge, what we call first level judges.
First
right?
instance.
First instance judges. That's both RTC for most cases, criminal cases, but also for MTC. I just, I'm active in the education of judges to the Philippine Judicial Academy. I chair its philosophy department, and it's incredible the quality of our judges. But they have structural problems to deal with, and that, I think, has to be addressed, and the Supreme Court is the only body that can address those structural problems through jurisprudence, through rules that they can issue. I hope they were less conservative and more liberal in terms of allowing lower court judges to be also more progressive and liberal, particularly in the way they run the courts so that they do not have... It was very interesting today because there was an incident that was really being dealt with, a motion to quash, as Lian was saying it. And you could see that if you follow all the procedures, oh my God, it's going to be another 3 to 4 months. So there was like this part of me, oh no, she's going to...
Spend another Christmas.
It would have broken my heart and broken our hearts if Leila spent another Christmas, Senator Leila spent another Christmas in jail, di ba? Only to be released in February or March or April or May, right? So it would have broken my heart. And you could see the judge trying very best to follow the rules. But if he did follow the rules, that would have, for these other cases, these other issues would have lasted another 6-9 months. So the fact that he was, he knew his law, he knew his jurisprudence on bail, he knew his evidence and made his analysis, his really great analysis, as I said, to encourage that behavior. There's a bit of risk there always because of being reversed, etc. But lower court judges, we saw that in the, for example, in the tax cases, in the Pasig, etc., or eventually the Court of Tax Appeals. You can see that on Rappler that in fact lower court judges, when they deal with the facts, they know what's right.
A paranoid question. Is there a possibility that, let's say, the Solicitor General will file like a motion for reconsideration or something, like not directly related to the motion for bail, no? But I think of the motion for reconsideration that the Solicitor General Guevara is filing against in the case of Lady Ann Salem.
And they did it for Senator Leila for the acquittal, which is really kind of ridiculous, right? I mean, I don't.
Do you see
sorry,
that?
But Solicitor General Guevara is brilliant. lawyer, he knows his law, right? So I'm not gonna second guess him. But there's always that possibility that later on, if she gets acquitted, which seems to be the case, and I don't know, we'll have to respect the judicial processes and allow the judge to make that the decision as other evidence are presented. But they could always do that. But the rule we know, if you know your law in the Philippines, the rule is you
if I
cannot appeal an acquittal.
If I may, if that were to happen, Dean, and that would really be sending mixed signals, in my view, and forgive the naivete here, I don't think the Marcos government, I mean, the Solicitor General being under the president, lawyering for the president, I don't think the Marcos administration or President Marcos himself would even consider doing that, given how badly that would come off, I think. I mean, they'd have to be really, really stupid to do that, I think. But that's a view from my point.
Yeah, gentlemen, I just I'll direct your attention to the screens now. You're now seeing on your screens live footage from Camp Crame. The Rappler team has just seen a man carrying several large bags and stepping out of the custodial center. We will continue with our discussion here, but we will also bring you live updates from time to time. I realize I am imposing on your time, Dean Tony and Kaloy, but thank you. I think it's really important for us to understand exactly what's happening. It took a long time for us to reach this particular stage.
Can I do one update?
Yes, sure. Okay.
The order to release her has already been released by the judge. So that's different from the bail. Bail is you have to pay, etc., etc.
You have to go through the process.
Now the order of release. So she'll come out tonight. But there's also a paranoid question.
Yeah, that's
Is
right.
she gonna spend another day here? In the categorical answer, John, and Kaloy is no. She will be home tonight.
Yes. This is, as I said earlier, a happy day. It is a big day for her, a big day for her family. I mean, we know, the hard stuff that she had to go through, and we're just so thrilled that she finally can, be free. If you allow me, John, and feel free to cut me off if you need to say something, but I'm reminded actually of taking a more expansive view here on what this means for the Marcos administration.
Yes,
and what
please.
how it can kind of, I don't want to use capitalize, but
Kaloy, Dean Tony did say that there is a momentum here that the Marcos administration can seize. Yeah. So go ahead, please.
Oh yeah. Yes, please. Oh, yeah, definitely. There's a momentum, I think. And also, it's not just the Marcos administration. The expectations by the international community, expectations from the human rights groups are going to be very, very high. One thing I would like to point out as, kind of what the Marcos government can do moving forward is that, there's this UN joint program that is being enforced in the Philippines. This UN joint program was the result of a UN resolution back in 2021, I think it was, that was a product of the drug war advocacy by many, many individuals and groups in Geneva. The Philippine government, just a bit of a background, the Philippine government resisted the idea of the UN investigating the drug war killings, right? And so, but agreed to this UN joint program that was crafted or led in the crafting by Iceland. And this program, we had misgivings about it from the start, in the beginning, because it was not an accountability program. We wanted the drug war to stop. We wanted the killers prosecuted. It was not what it was about. But later on, we realized, of course, that the joint program, in the long run, will be useful in terms of fixing the many problems that we have in the criminal justice system. We're talking about police investigation of crimes and killings. We're talking about using the Minnesota Protocol of investigating questionable debts. We're talking about strengthening institutions, the CHR, and the government, by the government itself in terms of respecting, upholding human rights, right? The problem is that the UN Joint Program is going to end in July next year.
Oh,
And no government, no foreign government is willing to sponsor a resolution again in the UN to extend it. The Philippine government, the impression that we got is that it's happy to just see it, fulfill its mandate by the time allotted by the resolution, which is again in July. But what we want, what we want appeal to the Philippine government is that it should take a lead in trying to extend the program by by itself probably sponsoring a resolution to that effect, and to be then supported by member states at the UN Human Rights Council, right? Because we think if the Marcos administration knows what it's doing and values, the good image that it's getting these days, continuing the UN Joint Program and that fixes the criminal justice system, the judicial system, and all of these problems, can only be good for it. And not just it, but can only be good for Filipinos who are facing issues of justice and human rights violations and all of that. There's nothing bad in making sure that the program continues, improved program continues. And really, that's our appeal to the Philippine government, is to really take the step. Go ahead.
Is that within the realm of political possibilities? Is it really something that the Philippine government can you really imagine the Philippine government taking the lead on extending this joint program?
That's what we're saying. I think it does. I mean, again, given all of these, improvements, quote unquote, that we're seeing,
momentum.
I think it can do that. Kumpas lang naman siguro ni Presidente Marcos yan. Sasabihin niya sa DFA and the DOJ, okay, look, let's take another look at this UN Joint Program. Let's not dismiss it outright just because it's ending in July. There must be something good that we can still do with the program. I mean, if we're really serious about improving the situation in the Philippines, right? And if you're really serious about breaking away from the very destructive, climate that the Duterte administration, cultivated. So I don't know. I mean, some people might see this as naivete on our part, but really, ending the program just because it's ending, and just because other governments are not willing to stick out their necks without the kind of buy-in from the Philippine government, it's just a waste, really. And one thing to keep in mind is that if the UN Joint Program ends in July, the Philippines is basically off in terms of wala nang ibang platform sa UN ang Pilipinas, except this UN Joint Program. So again, this is looking long term in terms of fixing the decades-old problem that we have. Already, and the final point, the UN Special Rapporteur on extrajudicial killings have come to the Philippines on an academic, non-official visit to look into how the Minnesota Protocol, the Minnesota Protocol is like a protocol in which there are steps that investigators can use to investigate questionable deaths. And, in the Philippines, including current drug war killings, those are within the ambit of that protocol. And that can happen. Now, what we like to see is for the Philippine government to really be serious about using this protocol, because the DOJ already made commitments that they would like the Minnesota Protocol enforced. So that's something that we would really like to see.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that would be really great. And I do have some historical perspective here, Kaloy. Before Duterte, our diplomats were actually well known for human rights advocacy in Geneva and elsewhere. That's still a vestige of the EDSA revolution. That after EDSA, President Aquino gave instructions that all over the world we were going to be advocates for human rights. Even if we've always had problems implementing that ourselves in our country, but all over the world we're going to have to do this. And my experience of our diplomats until 2016 was the consistency on that. Even in their votes, in their in what they were advocating, in the High Commission on Human Rights, in the Human Rights Committee, and everywhere. They were even in environmental agreements. They're strong advocates. So it must have been very painful for our diplomats when they had to suddenly, in the Duterte government, and I know also some of them, to suddenly have to withdraw from that pro-human rights and kind of became very, very defensive. So now this process, this protocol is very important to also restore us back. Because you have to have credibility locally to be, again, advocates of human rights internationally.
And I think also, just to add, Tony, John,
Go ahead.
the administration really has a lot of things that it can build on. The UN office in the Philippines, they've done quite a bit of work on the UN Joint Program. They have a team here in the Philippines that are doing amazing work in terms of engaging with civil society organizations, engaging with the police, which unfortunately had some initial resistance, but now they've managed to hurdle that. That's why, along with COVID, this resistance by the government agencies was one of the reasons why the UN Joint Program kind of, started a lot of false starts. But they've since gained traction and they're really moving forward. They're really doing good. So, sayang lang kung hindi masundan. The UN Office of Drug and Crime, and they've done amazing work trying to engage the Philippine government in terms of, for instance, trying to improve how illegal drugs is handled by the Philippine government. And again, there's a lot of things that the government can build on. And my fear is that without the platform of the UN Joint Program, although there are still these UN offices, right? We have UNODC, you have the UNICEF, UN Women, UN the Development Program, but the UN Joint Program is very, very specific, and it's just it's just a waste kung hindi siya ma-follow through at mawawalan ng engagement yung Philippine government. So this is why we're appealing to the Department of Foreign Affairs, Secretary Manalo, to really take another look at the UN Joint Program. We're also appealing to the Department of Justice Secretary Remulla to also follow through on the commitments that his office has made. Let's be fair here. Mr. Remulla has done quite a bit in terms of addressing many issues. Quite apart from the drug war issues, decongesting detention facilities is one of the top issues of Mr. Remulla, and all that is good. And that's part of the whole process that's being undertaken by the UN Joint Program. So DOJ, DFA, and all the government agencies, and also probably even the Philippine Presidential Human Rights Committee can engage, who has a direct line to the president, can engage in making sure that the UN Joint Program gains more traction moving forward.
Okay, just a quick question. I wanted to ask about the APEC summit. I didn't realize the connection. So the president is going there very soon. That could be an opportunity, right? Oh wait, hold on. Maybe you can think about that. There is some movement right now in Camp Crame. You can see that on our screens. Our senior reporter, Lian Buan, will let us know. We'll annotate from Camp Crame. Lian?
Crame Custodial Center. Ito na yung pinakamaraming movement na nakita namin ever since we've arrived here almost an hour ago. Kanina nakita na namin na may lumabas na may mga dalang bagahe. So we are safely assuming that that's some of former Senator Leila de Lima's things. Huling nakausap natin yung mga staff niya kanina, nakasama niya sa loob, ay inaayos pa daw yung paperwork at nag-iimpake pa. But now we're seeing movements. Kanina wala itong mga pulis dito sa harap. So we are expecting na lalabas na siya in a bit. We already see the release order from the court. So as far as the PNP is concerned, okay na kasi may release order na si Judge. So now it's just a matter of administrative processes dito sa Camp Crame. Again, the last time that I talked to the staff of Senator De Lima, nakasama niya sa loob ay pinaprocess pa ang paperwork at mga bagahe. And we saw some baggages earlier being taken out na. So we're on standby here. Nagmo-move na rin kami. As you can see, nagmo-move kami ng position because she may be going out of the usual entrance and exit of Camp Crame, where we've always seen her the past 6 years and 9 months. So when she goes out here, she will be walking out as a free woman for the first time since February 2017, albeit on bail because the case still goes on. But the legal team, they told me kanina that they would likely file a demurrer to evidence. What does that mean? The prosecution has finished their presentation of the case in this last charge, so the legal team will file a demurrer, which is a pleading that you file if you're confident enough na yung weakness ng prosecution ay sapat na para ma-dismiss yung kaso mo outright. So they should be filing that in the next few days. They're quite ready to file it. They're raring to file it. They're very confident of their case. But tonight, the main priority is to get former Senator Leila de Lima out safely. Our fellow reporter Jairo is already at a hotel nearby for the planned press conference of the lawyers and Senator Leila de Lima. This will be the first time that she will be speaking as a free woman. Yung walang nagko-cover sa kanyang mga police escort, and reporters don't have to settle for a paper and pen pag dinadalaw siya sa Camp Crame. And they don't have to settle for an interview supervised by DOJ prosecutors para lang i-watch kung meron bang subjudice na magaganap. Again, if you're just tuning in to Rappler, this is the most movement that we've seen so far for the last hour. Meron ng police dito. This is the most police staff that we've seen outside of Crame for the past hour. But we have not gotten a sight yet of former Senator Leila de Lima. So we give it back to you, John, for the discussion. And once we know, I just saw one of Senator de Lima's staff. So ngayon ko lang siya makikita ulit sa labas. So we'll see kung if that is the cue na lalabas na siya. I can see him, that's him in front of the door, at nagbukas na rin yung door. So
Lian?
I think in a moment lalabas na siya because ngayon ko lang nakita yung staff niya na lumabas. We've been talking via text for the past hour, and the door has opened. So we moved the camera because kanina lahat kami nakatutok dun sa isang gate, but the cars and the police staff that has crowded custodial center is crowding the usual exit and entrance. Dito rin naman talaga usual na lumalabas si Senator de Lima whenever she goes out of the hearing and whenever visitors come. I think this door is already familiar to a lot of Filipinos because every time someone visits her or is barred from visiting her, this is the door that you see. But John, we can allow you to we can let you, I think, continue with the discussion because we don't know kung gaano pa to katagal, but we'll continue the live footage from here, and we'll let the newsroom know if there's anything to report further.
Okay, thanks very much, Lian. Maybe, can I ask you one question before you go, Lian?
Yes, John, go ahead.
Yeah, so you were, I know that you've been inside. I've been inside myself. Can you just describe for our viewers? It's there's not a straight path to her detention center. So when you enter, can you just sort of
Yes.
describe? So when you enter, there's that receiving room.
Pagpasok mo, dun ka muna sa... Yeah. Pagpasok mo, dun ka muna, kung ano yung nakikita nyong blue door na parang may screen,
That's right.
dyan ka muna pupunta. The personnel will get all of your things, all of your bags, especially your cellphone. So wala kang
That's right.
pwedeng cellphone na dalhin sa loob. You cannot take any recording device, pero pwede kang magdala ng notebook at ballpen or notebook at lapis, and that's all you can do. Tapos pagpasok mo, para siyang isang narrow maze, no? Hindi siya sprawling compound. At least from where I've accessed. So para siyang narrow maze until you get to para siyang, how do I explain it? If you can imagine a very narrow eskinita, para siyang ganon, except that it's clean, hindi siya, wala siyang mga kanal, hindi siya mabaho. Pero yun, narrow eskinita siya. I've been to the receiving room. It's just a simple room. It's a no-nonsense room. Isa lang siyang ordinary room. And by the time of the pandemic, nung hindi na siya makapunta sa Muntinlupa Court, they hold hearings from inside the Camp Crame. Kaya tawag niya na dun sa receiving room na yun, courtroom. Kasi dun siya nag-hearing. I've been inside just myself and her. There was an occasion where it was her birthday, so ang daming tao. I've been in a mass. They celebrate mass almost every week kung kakayanin. And I've been inside with the supervision of DOJ prosecutors dun sa courtroom na sinasabi. So it's not the crowded prison that you see on TV and in photos. It's a no-nonsense, straightforward facility na maraming eskinita.
Thank you very much, Lian. We'll hear from you again once there's more movement from Camp Crame. Thank you. Yes, Dean, right? I mean, you've been there many times. It's actually a pretty long walk from there, no? Probably maybe 30, 40 meters. And then there's another place where there are more police. And then they check you again, and then there's the reception, and beyond the reception is her detention.
It's not heaven.
It's not.
Neither is it like hell of the detention centers that Lian was talking about, but it's still some kind of hell. It's hot, and especially because you don't deserve to be there.
Yeah. So she never. There's no air conditioning. She had to petition for a microwave, I think. And it was only granted because there were people bringing food, and the food would spoil if she couldn't reheat it and so on. But very, very simple amenities.
She was offered many times, like other celebrities, celebrity politicians, to be confined in a hospital. It's aircon, more freedom, I suppose. But she never took that option. Except when she really had to go to the hospital for treatment or checkups.
Dean, I know that you have to go, and then I hope Kaloy is still on the line. Yeah, thank you. I just want to go back to the question about momentum and maybe what can be done with the APEC summit. No, I mean, this is a gauge of how important this decision, this ruling was. That we're talking about these things. That there's a possibility that the Philippines can pivot and become the initiator of the extension of the joint program. That sort of thing. I mean, this is a far cry from just being granted bail, right? So, just one last contextual point. There have been several U.S. senators who have, over the years, sent letters to the Philippine government calling for the release of Leila de Lima. Now, the U.S. is the host of the next APEC summit, so I can see that there's a fertile ground there for Marcos to make some moves. Dean and then Kaloy, what should the Marcos administration do to make the most of this momentum in the APEC summit?
Well, by default, I think President Marcos will be applauded for this decision because it's not just the U.S. The parliamentarians from all over the world have been asking for this. European countries have been asking for this. So lots of poggy points, as we say here in the Philippines for this. But that could wane very easily if you don't actually follow through with the major reforms that are still needed for access to justice and for stopping human rights violations in the country. So what I would wish is that the government sees, if we do right, we actually get a lot of praise for it. And by the way, that praise comes with real economic benefits, you know what I mean, that are frequently conditioned on your human rights situation. I guess, Kaloy, you know, the human reports next year, the State Department, this will be the headline, right? So,
Hold on, gentlemen. My apologies. We need to go back to Lian. We can see that the coaster has moved closer to the blue gate, which sounds like a very trite thing, but actually, if that's the vehicle for Senator Leila de Lima, then that's that is a major development. Lian?
Yes, John, sabi mo nga, it might not look like big things when you see it from the live stream, no? Pero if you've been covering her, every little thing counts. Every little movement is a signal that she might be coming out soon. And also, we heard from our colleagues in the hotel that they were already told to prepare na in 30 minutes dapat nandun na siya. So that's obviously coming from her staff from inside then, preparing the setup in the hotel where she would give her first press conference as a free woman since February 2017. You know, the last time I talked to her lawyers, John, ang last visit nila sa kanya ay nung Friday. Basically, with the assumption na if favorable ruling yung makuha niya today, they were asking her na paspasan natin ang paglabas ng Camp Crame. Also for security reasons. So they were telling her yung mga libro, wag munang kunin lahat, isunod na lang. Yung pagpapaalam sa mga naging alaga niya ng pusa sa loob ng Camp Crame is to make it fast and to make it efficient and to make sure that she gets out as safely and as smoothly as possible. The last time also that I talked to her lawyer, they said parang anxious siya nung Friday because she doesn't want to be disappointed again. Like, she's been through this motion so many times in the last 7 years, and per every case, per every promulgation of an order, umaasa siyang yun na. The last being the denial of bail ni Judge Romeo Benaventura. So they're managing her feelings, they're managing her hopes, pero nung Sunday, nung last na silang nagmass, sabi sa atin nung mga nandun ay it was a moving and exciting mass. The positivity was in the air. Their confidence level was high. We saw that in her demeanor kanina pagdating niya sa Muntinlupa RTC. So actually, like, they've prepared for this. Siguro may mga last minute lang na hindi nila, may mga last minute unforeseen changes in the plan. But if you represent a former senator of the Philippines, Asia's most famous political prisoner of the last years, you pulido na yung plano mo. So it's just paperwork now and making sure that all is well when she comes out. But again, bigla na namang na huminto yung movement dito, but we're expecting it as soon as possible.
Yeah, Lian, you mentioned the books. That's one thing. I mean, like maybe a behind the scenes look at her life there. No, I mean that was one thing that she was allowed to receive, and there were certain people who sort of maybe even baptized themselves as her book donors. No, so marami talaga siyang libro na binabasa. I can imagine over 6 years and 9 months, she must have accumulated quite a number of books.
And John, she also likes to read pleadings kasi wala daw mapafile na pleading ang kanyang litigation team without having gone through her. So she checks every pleading that they file. Ang tawag ng litigation team sa kanya ay Jaworski because she's a playing coach. And they defer to her because she's a bar top-notcher. She was a former election lawyer, former CHR, former Secretary of Justice. So they defer to her. But yun nga, one of the things she reads sa loob ng Camp Crame ay yung mga pleading mismo ng kaso niya as a player coach to her litigation team.
That's a memorable phrase, no? Or description. Playing coach. Yeah.
Usually, hindi yan ini-encourage, Lian. Diba? You always tell people you don't want to be your own lawyer. But I've been there naman. And she comments, but she also trusts her lawyers. I mean, malalim din yung trust.
We see her, John. We see her.
Okay.
She's here.
All right.
John, we see her.
Okay.
We see her behind the screen. Nagpapaalam na siya. If you see that hand waving, yan, nagpapaalam na siya sa kanyang mga police escort. You know, Senator De Lima, we've been told, has built a very cordial relationship with her personnel, yung personnel dito ng Camp Crame. If you give your life to the hands of this personnel, especially after the hostage taking, there's definitely an affinity there sa mga escort sa kanya. Kanina nga, just an anecdote, yung isang police escort niya parang inaasar ng mga visitor na parang sana mapalaya na siya. And one of them said, kung kami nga lang sana na makalaya na rin siya. Yeah, but we know that they're just the administrators of custodial center. So now we see her sitting down. That's her longtime staff. Presumably talking to her, or baka may pinipirmahan pa sila. But we'll let you watch this footage. We waited for this footage since February 2017. So we'll let you watch it until she walks out the door.
The arrest order against Senator Leila de Lima was issued on February 23, 2017. The following day, February 24, she was arrested. So we've waited 6 years and 9 months to see this. I guess the final paperwork before she is released. Si Jaira? I'll tell her. I'll message.
John, tumatayo na si Senator Leila de Lima. She's now making her final handshakes to the personnel of PNP Custodial Center. John, at exactly 7:04 p.m. November 13, 2023, former Senator Leila de Lima is out on bail as a free woman. As you heard, ang sinabi ulit ni former Senator Leila de Lima is free at last. You know, that was the first thing she told me paglabas niya ng courtroom nung nakita ko siya. Sabi niya, free at last. And then when she greeted her supporters outside of the RTC, she also said, freedom at last. It's repetitive words, but it's the only word you can say at this point after 6 years and 9 months of detention. Really, the only thing you can say is free at last. Excuse me. Saan? Saan?
As Lian Buan noted, 7:04 p.m. was when Senator Leila de Lima walked out of the custodial center inside Camp Crame, where she had been staying, not by choice, since February 24, 2017. She's out on bail. She's still escorted by police for security reasons. They, I believe, are on their way to Novotel Hotel in Araneta Center for a press conference. I hope she's also had time to take something to eat.
There's good, so shouldn't be a problem.
So Lian, the convoy has left. Is there anyone who else is left there? Is no one there? Everyone has moved on to Novotel or?
No one. Yeah, everyone has moved on to the hotel. With her, in the car with her is her longtime staff na hahanapin natin mamaya para sa hotel niya. But we were told of her plans, no? Pero we can't disclose it kasi
Sure.
the reason why nasa Crame yung lawyers niya nung Friday is they were begging her to at least delay some plans kasi nga for security reasons. So we have an idea of what her plan will be after the press con, but they're really concerned about her security. So we're not in authority to disclose it just yet, but we will be following her to her first press conference.
Incidentally, is there a date already for the next hearing?
I think baka mas masagot ni Dean Tony kasi siya yung nandun sa kanina sa courtroom. But I heard the judge say na may 10 days yung prosecution to comment on the latest motion. But magpa-file ng demurrer anyway yung kanyang legal team, and what that
Okay.
means is that they don't want to present their evidence anymore. They are confident enough that the weakness of the prosecution's case is sufficient for the judge to dismiss the case outright. So at least in the foreseeable future, it's paperwork from here on. The next hearing will have to ask the lawyers when that next hearing will be.
Okay.
I think November 24 to remark lang marking of evidence kasi some of the prosecutor's evidence was not marked, so they will mark that properly. Then 10 days from that, the defense can comment on that evidence. So it's all purely, really formal steps to take. But you're right. The next step would probably be a demurrer. Why would you present evidence when the judge already said in his order, which is very analytical, brilliant, based on the evidence, very detailed, no way can it be reversed and questioned, very categorically says there's no lack of evidence to convict Senator Leila. So demurrer would be the right step, and then the case is over.
Lian, just one last question before I let you go. I fully expected that Senator De Lima will enter into her own van, wala nang police, pero she was still surrounded. I think there's only one staff member with her. Whose decision was that? Was that the police? Was that a request of the staff?
I will get you a confirmation on that, John. No? Pero last na pag-uusap kasi namin ng lawyers niya, sa sobrang concern nila sa safety ni Senator De Lima, they would make it a priority na escorted siya at least in the immediate moments of her freedom. They think that the immediate hours or day succeeding her freedom is a very crucial time. So I'll get confirmation on you for that. But if I were to base it on our last conversation, I think they appreciate na meron siyang escort because they need that added security that maybe they can no longer provide. Let's just consider na she's no longer a senator. So yung mga ganong klaseng detail wala na sa kanya. So I think she would appreciate, but I'll get you a confirmation.
Thank you very much, Lian. I know it's been a very long day. We'll let you go for now. Thank you. We'd also like to say thank you to Dean Tony and Kaloy. Our apologies. No, things happen, but thank you very much also to Mr. Carlos Conde of Human Rights Watch, Dean Tony Lavinia of the Movement Against Disinformation, and one of Senator De Lima's co-counsel, and of course Lian Buan in Camp Crame. We are going to next have Ronald Llamas, former presidential advisor and a friend of Senator De Lima, joining us. Hold on. I'd like to call on former presidential advisor Ronald Llamas, who is a friend of the senator and has been following this case from the very start.
Good evening, John. Good evening, Dean Tony Lavinia. Good evening, Attorney.
Good evening. First things first, how do you feel and how do the friends of the senator feel?
Masayang-masaya, no? Dahil ilang beses na itong nabitin, John. No? Alam mo naman yun, di ba? Actually, during the election, or immediately afterwards, nung na-interview ako sa isang talk show, sabi ko, ito ay isang low-hanging fruit for the next president, Bongbong Marcos. Dahil hindi naman niya kaaway si Leila de Lima at balak niyang i-rebrand yung Marcos family name sa international, the best ay huwag siyang makialam dito sa kaso na ito. Hindi tulad nung nakaraang presidente na talagang diniinan, pinressure at kung totoo yung sinabi ng mga witnesses, ay pinilit silang magbigay ng false testimony laban kay Leila. So, tingin ko, as early as last year, this could have been a low-hanging fruit for President Bongbong Marcos.
Any reason why you think this happened at this particular time, not earlier? I mean, it's been a year and 6 months or so since the election.
Well, on the case itself, no? Ang hirap na ng pangatawanan yung kaso dahil nag-withdraw na o nag-rescind na yung marami sa mga witnesses. Hindi ko nga alam kung meron pang natira. At very strong yung case ni Leila na siya ay hindi lamang mabigyan ng bail, kundi ma-acquit na. Kaya nagtataka ko, bakit si Soljan Guevara ay nag-a-appeal pa, nag-a-file pa ng MR sa Court of Appeals tungkol sa acquittal niya. Malinaw naman na this is a grave injustice to Senator Leila de Lima. No? Kaya ikatlo ay siyempre dahil nasa Pilipinas tayo, it's not just legal, no? It's also political. At tingin ko isang tinitimpla ng gobyerno kaya medyo hirap silang ibalanse ito last year ay yung kanilang alliance with the Duterte, yung kanilang alliance with Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo. Two powerful ex-president na galit kay Leila. Yung isa, ang tingin kay Leila, siya ang nagpakulong sa kanya. Yung isa, ang tingin kay Laila, mortal enemy, na nung mayor pa lang siya, ay tinutugis na siya as a chairman ng Commission on Human Rights. Kaya galit na galit itong dalawang ex-president na ito. Nung nakita nga kami dyan ni Laila noong 2016 sa Washington, D.C. I was there for a conference in New York. Nandun siya for meetings with senators and congressmen sa Washington, D.C. Kasama niya yung kanyang abogado, si Attorney Jojo Garcia. Ang sabi ko kay Laila, Laila, huwag ka munang umuwi. Obserbahan mo muna yung sitwasyon back home. Dahil yung mga kalaban mo ron ay mga psychopaths and sociopaths. No? Baka hindi ka lang ipakulong na mga yan. Baka worse. No? Pinatinan ko siya nung nandun kami December of 2016. Pero sabi ni Laila, wala naman ako nagawang kasalanan eh. Ba't ako matatakot bumalik sa Pilipinas? Eto yun, bumalik nga siya. And the rest is history. Ibig sabihin talagang napakatibay ng prinsipyo ni Laila na tingin niya wala naman siyang ginawang masama kahit all the signs were there na may gagawin sa kanya. Itong psychopathic na leader ng bansa ay tinuloy pa rin niya ang kanyang pag-uwi. Dahil nga, ang tingin niya, wala siyang ginawang masama.
I think it bears stressing, no, that Senator Laila was elected senator in May 2016, took office on June 30, and then February was already arrested and put in detention, no? So less than a year lang siya inside the halls of the Senate.
Yes.
The rest of the time, in fact, the rest of her term, plus an additional year and a half, she was in detention. I want to talk about that, no? The political dynamics involved here, no? But before we go into that, Sec Ronald, gusto ko sanang tanong sa inyo. So you're a friend. You're one of the many friends of the senator who have been supporting her. Can you give us our viewers an idea of what you and your friends did behind the scenes, no? How did you show your support? What kind of work did you do behind the scenes all these years?
Ako kasama yung aking mga kapatido sa Akbayan ay tumulong kami dun sa international support kay Laila. Halimbawa, sa European Parliament, we were able to get at least three resolutions of the European Parliament itself, working with Member of Parliament Nina Hill at the time, para pumosisyon yung European Parliament na palayain si Laila. Actually, kasama dun sa resolution, pati si Maria Risa na huwag iharas ng gobyerno, no? Kasama rin sa resolution yung extrajudicial killings, no? Naglabas din ang US Congress ng at least 2 resolution, US Senate ng at least 1 resolution, at yung IPU, International Parliamentary Union, no? The biggest and the oldest, naglabas din ng 2 resolution, no? So isa yan sa aming mga ginagawa at that time na tulong kay Laila, no? Ikalawa, syempre, dinadalaw-dalaw namin siya. Nagdadala nga ako, pinagluluto ko kasi siya dahil isa sa akin na one of my few skills is cooking and gardening. Nandito ako Pero mahilig ako magluto. So dinadala ko siya ng pagkain, no? Dinala ko siya ng Bicol Express, dinala ko siya ng laing, dinala ko siya ng yung adobong tuyo, yung walang sabaw, at saka dinala ko siya ng adobo sa gata na manok. No? Kasama ko yung kanyang abogado, si Attorney Jojo Garcia. Tapos dinadalaw din namin siya ni Randy David, dinadalaw din namin siya yung mga liderato ng Akbayan. Minsan buong araw kami, alaskahan lang, tawanan lang. Paano nung parehas kami sa cabinet ni Pinoy, kami yung lagi nag-aalaskahan doon no? Lagi ko siyang pinapatawa dahil karamihan doon sa mga kasama ko sa cabinet, mga seryoso no? So kami ni Laila yung madalas mag-alaskahan doon, no? Minsan nga, alas ko sa kanya, hipokrita. Dahil, siyempre, hindi naman lahat ng kasama niya ay close siya. Minsan, meron siya mga kaaway at may katampuhan. Pero, nakikipagbeso-beso pa rin siya sa lahat. Kaya minsan ina-alaska ko siya na hipokrita. Kaya pag dinadalaw ko siya minsan sa Crame, ang tawag ko pa rin sa kanya, hipokrita. So ganoon yung aming relasyon. No? Hindi masyadong seryoso. Pero meron kaming mga pinagtulungan din noon na mga political operations katulad nung impeachment ni Chief Justice Corona, yung kaso labang kay ex-President Arroyo, etc. etc. Dahil siya yung nasa legal, ako yung nasa political, so minsan hindi magkalayo yung dalawa eh. Di ba? Yung legal has a political component and the political has a legal component. So, tapos doon sa UNCLOS, magkasama rin kami. Kasama si Leila ron sa delegation sa UNCLOS. No? So, nagkasama kami sa dalawang hearings ng UNCLOS nung panahon na yan, noong 2015. Kaya medyo on a personal level, madalas kayong mag-alaskahan, on an official level, ay nagtutulungan kami sa iba't ibang mga legal and political projects ng Presidente.
I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to her recently. What do you expect her to be doing? Let's say, she rests until the end of the year, and then she gets more active next year. What do you expect her to be doing? I mean, have you spoken about specific initiatives?
Ang tingin ko for now ay magpapahinga siya at baka mag-reflect siya ng maigi, no? Para sa kanyang dinaanan na halos 7 taon na nakakulong, no? Ay mag-take stock siya kung ano yung kanyang mga plano. At later on ay
Sec Ronald?
Decision. Hello?
Yeah, apologies, no? Magsisimula na magsasalita si Senator Laina. Let's listen to her.
Thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
Yes.
me here.
No problem.
Lalo na kay Sen. Risa, thank you so much. Thank you for everything. Free at last. At last. After 6 years, 8 months, 21 days. And this is my 2,454th day. So I'm released after 2,454 days. Hindi ko talaga ma-describe ang feeling na nangyari na yung pinakahihintay ko. But with your permission, I think some of you would want to ask questions later. But with your permission, meron po akong babasahin munang statement. Can I do that? Though it took too long, I never lost faith that my inevitable freedom will come. Alam niyong lahat kung gaano tayo katagal naghintay ng nagtiis, na may pananalig na ang katotohanan at totoong hustisya ay magtatagumpay. But the counting of the years, the months, days, hours, minutes, seconds, the milestones in my own life, in my family's life, and in our nation's history that I have missed by being unjustly detained cannot be counted. None of those can fully express how much and how long I have longed to be able to say the words, finally, the truth has set me free. Yes, it's always the truth. It's always for the truth. And that's why I'm now set free. Wala sigurong sapat na mga salita ang lubos na makakapaglarawan sa damdamin ng isang inosenteng inapi sa kabila ng pighati at paghihirap na dulot ng pagbaluktot sa mismong batas at prosesong ipinaglalaban ay patuloy na nananalig, nananampalataya at umaasa na darating din ang panahon na mananaig ang katotohanan at tunay na katarungan. Every moment was a test, and every single second was a fight to rise above the sorrow, the fears, the uncertainties of the future, and even, to be honest, the temptation to be overcome by hate and vindictive thoughts. there was always that temptation. Lahat po yun nilabanan ko. Hindi ko isusuko ang aking pagkatao at pagiging tao. They may have taken years of my life, but they will never take my humanity. Ang mundo ay puno ng mga taong buktot ang kaluluwa at makasarili sa harap ng pagdurusa ng taong bayan. I will never be one of them. Every second, every minute, every hour, every day, every month, and every year of the last 2,454 days was a struggle. But the one thing I can honestly say is that I never allowed myself to even entertain any regret. No regrets. Yes, I wish things turned out differently, but these are things that were beyond my control. But for the things that were, what I did, how I reacted, and my reasons for fighting for those who were victimized and cannot speak for themselves, I have no regret. As I appear before you today, 6 years, 8 months, 21 days, after I peaceably surrendered myself to the authorities, it is one of my greatest achievements in my career and in my life to say that not only did I survive all these years of persecution and unjust detention, I came out stronger than ever, with an even stronger commitment to truth, justice, human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. These are not just words to me. These have been my lifeline. These have been my life before, during, and after my unjust detention started. Kayo po ang aking ipinaglaban. Kaya maraming salamat dahil ako rin ay inyong ipinaglaban. Maraming salamat po sa mga panalangin niyo at sa walang kapagurang pananalig niyo sa katotohanan. Diyos mabalos, mabuhay ang sambayan ng Pilipino at ang Pilipinas. Thank you, Sen. Risa.
All right, we are opening now the floor for the questions. First to ask is Jairo Boledo from Rappler.
Good evening po, ma'am. First
Good
of all,
evening.
congratulations po sa legal victory niyo po na ito. Ang question ko po, ma'am, nabanggit niyo po sa statement niyo, yung mga persecutors niyo po, you will never be like them. Although, ma'am, malaking bagay po itong petition for bail, motion for reconsideration niyo po for bail niyo na natanggap. Hindi pa rin po tapos yung kaso.
Yes,
dahil
hindi pa.
ongoing pa rin po siya. Pero masasabi niyo po ba na legally vindicated na po kayo
Oh,
with
yes.
this recent victory?
Yes. Hindi ko pa buong na babasa yung decision. Although I'll try as much as possible to really avoid talking about the merits because as you said, as you acknowledged, hindi pa tapos talaga yung kaso. Baka ma-sub judice tayo. Pero, you know, as I said, I never lost faith. And we have always been confident about the merits of my case. And even when we first filed my petition for bail, matagal na kami nag-file ng bail, we were already confident of the merits of that. It's just unfortunate that the previous handling judge denied it. And so when we filed our motion for reconsideration, I think it was in June 13, we remained to be confident that the merits of our application for bail will be recognized and upheld by the court. And it took this long, understandably, because the judge is a new judge. So we had to review the entire voluminous records of the case. We were actually expecting a ruling as early as September because, as I said, we filed the motion for reconsideration noong June. So medyo tumagal, understandably again, and ito nga, I think, kasi nakita ko nga, although hindi ko pa nga nababasa, it was a thorough and extensive discussion of the merits of our motion for reconsideration. So it is a legal vindication because we were always confident, although I cannot further make any comment about that. I have a lot to say about that. But, you know, it's still pending. The case is still pending. Hindi pa po tapos. This is bail, this is provisional liberty, and this is definitely a great gift from the Almighty God.
Ma'am, last question lang po for me. Yung Marcos administration po, sinasabi po nila paulit-ulit na the justice system is working in the Philippines. And in response to your latest legal victory, Justice Secretary Crispin Remulla, this is po yung statement niya. It just shows the independence of the judiciary, what I've always been saying from the beginning, and that they are free to decide as they please, as they deem fit. Any reaction lang po sa statement po ni Justice Secretary?
I actually thank the administration for respecting the independence of the judiciary and the rule of law. Ganun lang naman. As somebody said, the legitimacy of the judiciary lies in its independence. It's just like, the legitimacy of the government or the legitimacy of the executive department or the government, the elected officials lie in the votes of the people. So judiciary, it's the independence. Without the independence of the judiciary, then we cannot say that the judiciary really has its legitimate standing in the scheme of things. So tama yan na sinasabi na pinakita ngayon na we have a working system. Kasi matagal na nga namin hinihintay yan. When the Marcos administration came in, there was some hope, at least in my case, that justice will be, will happen. And kasi nga, I always knew that while the former president was in power, I will not be set free because my persecution was his project. So how can I be set free during his term? So nung nagbago nga yung administrasyon, may pag-asa talaga. At umasa talaga ako ng umasa na makakamit ko yung hustisya at malalaman natin yung katotohanan about my innocence. But again, ayaw ko na muna dagdagan yung mga ganyang statement. Medyo nasobrahan na nga. Thank you.
Thank you, Sen. One question po for Sen Risa. Any message po for Sen Leila now that she's free and that you finally met each other again?
Well, you did it, Leila. Konti na lang, konting-konti na lang. And napakalaking vindication ito sa buong opposition. Itong vindication sa'yo. Kasi sa lahat natin, ikaw talaga yung sumalubong sa pinakamatinding dagok galing sa dating presidente. Ikaw talaga yung sinirang puri niya, sinubukang gawin. Ikaw talaga yung wineponize na yung buong legal system para lang parusahan ka kasi ikaw yung unang nag-imbestiga sa kanya. You continue to speak truth to power. At kahit sinubukan niyang tambakan ka ng ng mga ako na magsasabi ng pekeng kaso, hindi naman ikaw nagsasabi. Na-survive mo lahat yan. Na-survive mo yung stroke. Na-survive mo yung hostage taking. Hindi ka tumigil magsalita sa mga issue. Libo na siguro yung mga handwritten letters mo from Crame. And here you are. Here you are. So itong pagpapayag sa wakas na makapost ka ng bail at yung napipinto mong ganap na paglaya. Parang sumilip na ulit yung sikat ng araw. At alam natin, kahit napakatagal ng naging gabi mo, napakatagal ng gabi ng maraming kababayan natin. Once sumikat yan, dahil sa mga ginawa mo, hindi mapipigilan kumalat yan. So we're all so happy to have you with us and we all love you very much.
Sen Risa. Lagi ka rin nandyan. And you also write me regularly. Nagsusulatan kami niyan.
Thank you, Sen Risa. Thank you, Sen Leila. Our next to ask a question is Andrew Alimario from CNN Philippines.
Hi, ma'am. Good evening po. Anjo po. Hi, ma'am. Almost 7 years in detention. You've mentioned about surviving persecution. Do you plan to go after your persecutors? Do you plan to sue them? And your message to former President Rodrigo Duterte.
First, yung message ko kay former President Duterte, isa lang sabihin, God forgive him and God bless him. Yun lang muna ngayon. Marami pa akong pwedeng sabihin sa kanya. Pero wag muna. I don't want to be so, I don't want to be political sounding tonight because this is a moment of joy. This is, a triumphant moment for me. So I, as much as possible, I want to be gracious. And so yun na lang muna. God forgive him and God bless him. He knows what he did to me, I suppose.
Any plans of countersuing or what, or going after them?
Pinag-uusapan namin yan ng mga abogado ko. Wala muna kami mga specific na mga pwedeng i-announce about that. There's always that option, but as to definite plans, pinag-uusapan yan. Of course, there will be, I need to do something also. A lot of things to do. Hindi po madali, napakahirap, masakit talaga kung ipakulong ka na wala kang kasalanan. And it's a matter of justice that those that need to be held accountable should be held accountable.
Sorry about that. Senator, I know you said that you have no regrets over what happened, but what was the lowest point in those 6 years, 8 months, 21 days, and what pulled you through?
Well, isa sa mga, of course, sa personal life, sa family life, kasi may mga milestones sa family na mga na-miss ko. Like, for example, when my son, Vincent, passed the bar exams, and I was not allowed to attend his graduation. Masakit para sa akin yan. And then it's always painful to me that I'm not with my mom, my 91-year-old ailing mom who's now bedridden. So isa nga yan sa mga una kong gagawin, umuwi ka agad ako sa Bicol para makapiling ko ang aking ina. And we haven't seen each other for more than 4 years already. So itong homecoming na to, this will give her the best Christmas gift. I definitely would want to see her already. Siya excited na rin siguro. Kanina, nung nasa court ako, pinakausap sa akin ng brother ko sa cellphone niya, yung mami ko. And she's waiting for me. And so, yun masakit sa akin yun na mawalay ka sa pamilya. And of course, yung mga nawawala, mga wala na sa mundong ito, mga kamag-anak, mga kaibigan. Nung nawala si Pinoy, I was so down and I could not even pay my last respects. And some other friends, some other allies like si Sec Dinky. Masakit din sa akin not being able to say goodbye yung mga nawala na dito. And I'm of course updated with the news because meron naman akong newspapers and my staff would send me printed copies of news articles, online articles, and nakikita ko naman ang mga nagiging developments, and whether there are good news or bad news or sad news and all that. But really, those more than 6 years of being alone, because I've always considered my detention, my unjust detention, as both a curse and a blessing. It's a curse because I don't deserve it at all. It's a blessing because there are many things also that I've learned while in detention. I became more prayerful. I became closer to the Lord because, you know, I've got so much time to pray, to read the Bible, to reflect, to do contemplative prayer and all that. So those are blessings. And then I have learned to appreciate mundane things, small things in life. Pag umuulan, lumalabas ako sa quarters ko para para lang obserbahan yung ulan and all that. And then I have stray cats in my quarters. That's why I was so sad. I was almost crying when I left Camp Crame today or Custodial today because I had to leave the cats there. They've been my companions. They kept my sanity intact. So yung mga ganun po. It's a purifying experience. Pero pag may mga bisita ako and then they would say, we can imagine what you feel. And then I'm tempted to say, no, you can never imagine what I feel. You will know it only when you go through this also yourself. But I've developed a very routinary daily life in my detention. It's a very routinary daily life. And my problem now is how to adjust. Kasi magiging iba na ang aking routine from now on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sen. Leila. Any more questions? Si Mara from Straits Times.
Hi, Sen. Leila. Mara Cepeda po from the Straits Times. Ma'am, you've always been a very vocal figure in the Philippine opposition. What do you think, ma'am, are the implications of your release today for the Philippine opposition now? Your presence into the open world, I'm sure. Do you think would it help invigorate the opposition forces, especially now that, you know, kakaunti lang po sila ngayon sa Kongreso? What's your message for the opposition figures and the opposition people in the opposition movement who are, of course, very happy that you're released?
First of all, my fight for my advocacies will continue. And my advocacies are really shared by the opposition. Fight for the truth, fight for justice, fight for rule of law, fight for democracy, fight for sovereignty. And definitely I'll be working side by side with the opposition. I remain to be an opposition. And I'm with the opposition because we share the very same advocacies, ideals, and visions for this country. And hindi naman natapos yung pakikilaban ko sa mga advocacies ko habang nakakulong ako. I never stopped. And now that I'm free, I'm even going to work harder for those advocacies.
Ma'am, if there's one thing that you want the international community to remember about your legal victory today, what would it be po?
Well, it is a vindication of my innocence. And I thank the international community for closely monitoring my case. They've been there, and it helped a lot. It means a lot to me that the international community, almost from day one, has been monitoring the progress of my case, And many of them, many personalities, foreign dignitaries, and also foreign organizations have been releasing statements calling for my release. And this is vindication. And I will further work for complete vindication because hindi pa nga tapos itong kaso na to. I want people to know the truth of my innocence. I want the people to know how it happened. I want the people to know who are behind it. So in due time, because that's vindication. Kasi maraming napaniwala noon. So this is my opportunity. Because, you know, they destroyed my life. And that's why I'm going to rebuild my life now. They destroyed or ruined my name, my reputation. Now that I'm free, I'm going to work hard to redeem my name. And vindication, complete vindication, is the key. Thank you.
Thank you, Sen. Any more questions? All right. Before we end, are there anything else that Senator Leila and Senator Risa would like to add?
Pasasalamat lang po sa inyong lahat. Hindi niyo ko pinabayaan, kayo, my friends, my allies, my supporters, my sympathizers, for believing in me all this time, for your continued faith in me. Maraming salamat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sen. Thank you, Sen. Leila. Thank you, Sen. Risa. Okay, that ends our presser for today. And thank you so much, friends in the media.
Also is for Hindi ko pa alam kung talagang diretso na paplanuhin pa namin because foremost kasi iniisip ng mga kasama ko is my security. So we have to be doubly careful.
Okay po, kung wala na pong questions, last photos na lang po and then we can wrap up.
In jail. He's asking about my health. I said, I have health issues because I'm no longer young. In fact, I turned senior citizen or dual citizen in jail already because I was arrested when I was 57. And now I'm 64. So nag-birthday ako ng pagka-senior citizen ko nasa ano na. And I kept praying really that this Christmas won't be inside jail, that the celebration of Christmas. Grabe talaga yung dasal namin because as I told you, we were expecting the resolution on the MR as early as September. So last month, so every time nga nag-hearing yung sa court ay umaasa kami na ilalabas na ni judge yung ruling niya. And this today kasi is the last day, last hearing for the year. Ang next setting kasi is January na. So we were really expecting na ngayon na ilalabas because of that. As I said, September pa lang umaasa na kami na lalabas na yung ruling. And we have always been confident that I will be granted bail because we believe and we are sure of the merits of our cause.
Okay.
Ito talaga, hindi ito nawawala.
Sense isa pong nakatayo naman. Alright po, maraming salamat po.
First press conference of former Senator Leila de Lima since her release from Camp Crame at the Novotel Hotel in Quezon City. It's the fitting end to a fitting day. We heard Senator Leila talk about the amount of time she spent in jail, 6 years, 8 months, and 21 days, or 2,454 days. And in her short but moving speech, she said that she never lost faith that, to quote her, my inevitable freedom would come. But this is, I think, the first time that I've seen her actually own up to feeling vulnerable during her time in detention. She also said that she had some really low moments, and she recounted personal or family milestones that she missed, as well as not being able to visit the wake of former President Noynoy Aquino or former Secretary Dinky Soliman. We are also going to wrap up our special coverage of Leila de Lima's last case. We still have former presidential advisor Ronald Llamas on the line. Sec Ronald, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still here. Also watch Laila's press con.
Yes. First, a quick question. How did you feel listening to Laila's very characteristic speech?
Well, being involved in Philippine politics, minsan nakakapanghina ng loob eh. Diba? Kung maobserbahan natin yung uri ng politika sa atin. Lalo na yung ginawa kay Laila. No? Hindi lang siya pinakulong eh, dinemonize siya eh. Imagine mo yung hearing sa Congress na nilalapastangan siya nung wala siya ron. Diba? Yung talagang pinagtulungan siya ng mga makapangyarihan ng mga lalaki na naglilingkod sa isang mas makapangyarihan na presidente. Talagang no mercy ang ginawa sa kanya. No? Pero in spite of that, ay hindi lang siya nag-survive, ay in a way, nag-bloom siya eh. No? At tingin ko, yan ang makikita natin na strength niya itong mga darating na mga araw. Yung kanyang karanasan at itong nangyari ngayon, ito yung mga rare moments dyan na nakita natin, yung triumph ng integrity over cynicism, yung triumph ng hope against despair. Sa isang political milieu na halos hindi natin nakikita yan. No? At tingin ko, yan yung ibabandera, iwawagayway ni Laila. No? After niya magpahinga ng konti. At babalik siya sa labanan. Yun ay sigurado ko. Kung ano yung uri ng kanyang kondukta or yung kanyang political project ay still remains to be seen. Pero ang sigurado ko ay hindi siya dito magtatapos. This is a new beginning for her. No? For lack of a better example, no? Parang ito yung kanyang Mandela moment. Ito yung kanyang Aung San Suu Kyi moment. Kaya this is a new beginning at tingin ko we will see more of her. No? Inuulit ko, one of those rare moments na nag-triumph ang integrity over cynicism at nag-triumph ang hope over despair.
Maraming salamat, Sec Ronald. In fact, it might be the perfect example. This is her Mandela moment. I remember when Mandela was released in, I think, 1994, after spending a quarter century in jail, what really impressed viewers around the world was he did not look like he had spent a quarter century in jail. No? He looked like he had not only survived but thrived. And I think that's what we're seeing also with Senator Laila. No? I mean, she's admitted to her vulnerability, but that comes from an inner strength. No? I mean, I think we can all agree na when you visited her in jail, you come away feeling, all sorts of anxiety and so on. But she is a source of strength, no? And I think we also saw that in her speech, no? She was asked, and then in the press con, she was asked a very direct question: "What are you going to do with President Duterte?" And she said, "For now, no, I want God to forgive him and God to bless him." And then saka na yung what she would want to do. Maybe we can wrap up our discussion and also this special coverage. Sec Ronald, what do you think, what can we expect from Senator Laila? I mean, specifically, no? Maybe starting early next year. Do you expect her to go back into politics or, she was one of the country's best election lawyers. Do you expect her to go back into election lawyering or what? Specifically, what do you anticipate from her?
Well, sa mundo naman natin dyan, halos everything is politics. So, hindi ko siya ini-imagine na aalis sa ganyang klaseng mundo. Pero tingin ko, maganda yung kanyang pinagdaanan in spite of the hardships, in spite of the suffering na dinaanan niya. No? Ito ay maganda na maging halimbawa sa ating mga kabataan. Tingin ko doon siya pwede mag-focus eh. Maging icon, maging inspiration sa ating mga kabataan na naghahanap ng ganyang klaseng leader, no? Na naghahanap ng ganyang klaseng narrative, ganyang klaseng kwento. Ito, hindi siya telenovela katulad ng iba nating mga politiko na sinusubukang i-project yung kanilang mga buhay. Ito tunay na buhay. ito ay tunay na defining moment. No? Kaya sana dito maging bitamina dun sa disillusionment, disenchantment ng marami sa ating mga kabataan, sa ating political system at sa ating political leadership. At ito ay maging binhi o tanim, no? Itong kanyang pinagdaanan para sa isang mas marangal na kinabukasan. Para dito sa bagong henerasyon ng kabataan na alam mo naman dyan, hindi na tayo bumabata, at least hahawakan yung mga bandila na binawagayway natin dati. Ito yung magiging malaking contribution ng karanasan ni Leila, ng kanyang mga pagsubok. Itong bagong henerasyon na ito. Tingin ko sana dyan siya mag-focus.
Former Secretary Ronald Llamas, maraming salamat. No? Thank you very much for spending time with us and sharing your insights. Thank you.
Maraming salamat din, John.
All right. Now, let's go back to our reporter, Jairo Boliedo. He's been covering this event from the start, and he was also there at the press conference. Jairo?
Yeah, thank you, John. Nandito pa rin tayo ngayon sa Novotel sa Quezon City kung saan naganap yung press conference, kauna-unahang press conference si former Senator Leila de Lima matapos siya makalaya pansamantala mula sa Camp Crame. Dito sa Novotel sa 6th floor, naganap yung press conference ni de Lima kasama si Opposition Senator Risa Hontiveros. Una, naging emotional. Speechless ako sa gagamitin na adjective. Emotional si former Senator Leila de Lima at si Senator Risa Hontiveros nung magharap sila dito. Even evident din yun on the way Risa Hontiveros talk to de Lima. And si de Lima, nagbasa siya ng quick statement and she entertained a few questions from the members of the media. We asked former Senator Leila de Lima about her reaction on the Marcos administration statement saying that this case or her latest legal victory is an example of how the judiciary and how the justice system works in the Philippines. Ang sabi ni Senator Leila de Lima ay naniniwala naman talaga siya na nirespeto ng Marcos administration yung judiciary o yung independence ng korte. Sinabi rin, tinanong natin din si Senator Leila de Lima kung sa tingin niya ba ay legal vindication ito at naniniwala siya na kanyang latest legal victory ay isang vindication dahil buong ito ng paglaban niya for almost 7 years. Sabi nga ni former Senator Leila de Lima, she was detained for almost 6 years, 8 months, and 21 days or humigit kumulang 2,400 days. Kaya naman legal vindication ito sapagkat yung patuloy niya na paglaban at yung paglaban ng kanyang legal team, ang kanyang legal counsels ay nagpapatunay na napatunayan nila na mahina talaga yung mga kaso laban sa kanya at gawa-gawa lamang ito. Hindi masyadong nag-discuss ng kaso o ng merits ng kaso si former Senator Leila de Lima dahil ongoing pa itong case at nag-iingat siya doon sa tinatawag nating sub-judice role. Pero tinanong siya kanina sa Q&A kung will she go after her persecutors, especially that there's only one case remaining against her. At ang sabi niya ay marami siyang gustong sabihin kay former President Rodrigo Duterte. Pero ang masasabi niya lang for now ay God bless him and God forgive him. So yun yung sweet but strong statement ni former Senator Leila de Lima doon o palaban kay former President Rodrigo Duterte. Let's trace a few years back. Dito sa kaso na ito, nagsimula itong 3 drug charges against de Lima noong 2016 at 2017 nang manalo si Senadora Leila de Lima sa pagkasenador at nagsilbi bilang staunch critic at opposition icon sa ilalim ni former President Rodrigo Duterte. Specifically, de Lima criticized the way Duterte approach human rights, specifically the drug war, the bloody drug war, which killed almost 30,000 people. At ang sabi ni de Lima, o nagkaroon ng inquiry si de Lima dito na nagresulta doon sa public inquiry din sa kanya kung saan pinagbintangan si de Lima na hinayaan niya mag-proliferate lang yung illegal drug trade para di umano ay kumuha siya ng pera doon para pondohan ang kanyang 2016 senatorial campaign. Mula noon, February 24, 2017, ay naaresto si former Senator Leila de Lima. Magmula noon hanggang ngayon, 6 years, 8 months and 21 days ay nakapiit siya. Sa loob ng 6 years, 8 months and 21 days ay nagkaroon ng acquittal, nagkaroon siya ng mga legal victories sa loob ng period na iyon. Noong 2021 ay na-junk na o na-dismiss na yung kaso sa kanya na unang-una, at itong May lamang ay na-dismiss naman yung pangalawang kaso. Kaya dapat pong ulit-ulitin natin at dapat i-remind natin ang ating mga kababayan na hindi pa po tapos ang laban ni former Senator Leila de Lima at hindi pa natatapos ang kanyang kaso sapagkat dito ay pansamantala lamang siya nakalaya dahil sa bail o dahil sa piyansa. Bagkus ay patuloy pa rin ang kanyang kaso actually dahil hindi pa rin naman nadodrop yung case at inaasahan pa rin na magpapatuloy yung trial. Kanina nakausap natin yung ilang mga miyembro sa kanyang kampo at tinanong natin sila kung masusunod ba yung order ng Supreme Court na matapos itong kaso na ito during the first quarter of the year or year 2024. Ang sabi nila ay nakadepende daw yun. They're actually preparing to file later on a demurrer to evidence, a petition that will question the strength of the evidence against an accused. Basically, kung sakali man na mapapatunayan or magagrant naman yung susunod na motion nila, let's say matuloy sila mag-file ng demurrer to evidence at mag-grant ito, ay maaari makalaya entirely si Senator Leila de Lima dahil may effect ng acquittal yung demurrer to evidence. Kaya napakahalaga ng mga magiging development dito. Natanong din siya kanina kung ano mga plano niya, mga susunod na hakbang niya. After her release from detention, tinanong siya if she will go immediately to her mom in Iriga City in Bicol. At ang sabi niya ay pag-uusapan pa raw yun ng kanilang team. Hindi siya nabigyan masyado ng detalye, of course for security purposes. So ito yung mga susunod na hakbang ni former Senator Leila de Lima. Last lang, I just want to emphasize also that this case is a test case para doon sa Marcos Duterte ties dahil de Lima was persecuted under Duterte and she was released under a Marcos. So dito makikita kung patuloy ba yung mas strong ties sa pagitan ng dalawang pangulo, lalo't higit na hindi pa rin naman bumababa yung galit ni former President Rodrigo Duterte dito kay former Senator Leila de Lima at na-facilitate nga itong release ni de Lima under a Marcos. So iyon yung mga kaganapan dito sa Novotel at yung mga bagay na binanggit kanina ni former Senator Leila de Lima sa kanyang kauna-unahang press conference. And just a few things before I end my recap. Masaya-masaya si Senator Leila de Lima at evident yun actually. So on the way she speaks, the way she carries herself inside the room, nabanggit niya actually yung mga pusa niya sa loob ng Crame. At yun na yung nagpapalungkot sa kanya kasi yun na yung mga nakasama niya. But aside from that, masayang-masaya at kita sa kanya na talagang masaya siya because of her current release. Actually, sa dulo pa ng press conference ay parang nag-toast pa sila ni former Senator Leila de Lima using water to signify yung kalayaan niya at sinabi niya pa nga na freedom. So yun yung mga latest at mga nangyaring development dito sa Novotel. John?
Thank you, Jairo. I was also struck by how emotional Senator Risa Hontiveros was, no? I mean, even more emotional than Senator de Lima. Why do you think that happened? I mean, what was the reason for that?
I think there's a big reason here because, as we know, former Senator Risa Hontiveros is the only, a really opposition standing in the Senate. Mm-hmm. And I think she really felt the burden of, really fighting for De Lima in this administration. And she really felt what De Lima felt. Diba? Sinasabi niya kanina na si De Lima talaga of all the opposition icons, of all the opposition leaders from Duterte to the Marcos administration, De Lima faced all the persecutions, yung mga pamamahiya, yung mga ridicules and all. So, I think yun yung pinanggagalingan ni Senator Risa Hontiveros na isa rin siyang babae. So, I think nakaramdam siya at talagang naantig siya doon sa naging laban ni former Senator Leila de Lima. Lalo na mismong si former Senator Leila de Lima ay parang medyo in awe pa siya. Parang hindi pa masyado siyang convinced na talagang nakawala na siya. So, I think Risa Hontiveros really felt what De Lima are really feeling right now. So, yun yung, I think, naging connection sa kanilang dalawa. At hindi natin talaga maitatanggi na consistently, former Senator Risa Hontiveros is really has been supporting De Lima since the beginning and until nakakulong siya and until ngayon na nakalaya na siya.
Senator De Lima mentioned that in fact they exchange letters all the time, no? Which reminds me, when in detention, Senator De Lima had been writing these handwritten letters, right? To all sorts, no, and commenting on all sorts of issues. I wonder if you have a chance to to talk to her. I wonder if you can ask her if she will continue writing those now iconic notes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we didn't have the chance to ask her about her iconic notes, but definitely naging crucial yon talaga sa papanatili ng presence niya even inside detention. Dito talaga nilalabas. Thank you for pointing out, John. But yes, tama, dito nilalabas ni former Senator Leila de Lima yung mga reaction niya on mga bagay-bagay, yung mga pasasalamat niya, mga condemnation niya para patuloy talagang maramdaman ng mga tao yung presence niya during nung kanyang term as senator and even after her term as senator. So pwede natin itanong yan sooner or later kay former Senator Leila de Lima if she will continue doing that.
Maybe just one last question, Jairo. So Senator De Lima talked about the length of time, no? 6 years, 8 months, 21 days. It just occurred to me listening to her na there's also another number that we can think of. No? It's been 1 year and 1 month since she was held hostage, no? Inside Camp Crame, no? Napag-usapan ba yan? Did that come out in any of the conversations? I mean, that must have been a really scary moment for her. Must have been a particularly low point in her detention.
I think passively nabanggit siya kanina, even Senator Risa pointed it out that for former Senator Leila de Lima, life inside Crame was never easy. Even though, supposedly Crame is secured, she almost lost her life because of that attempted murder against her. So na-point out yon all throughout. Pero wag natin din kalimutan talaga na it's really a low time for Senator Leila de Lima. After that, I actually talked to Attorney Bonita Cardon, one of the lawyers, at ang sabi niya ay talagang, sinabi pa actually ni former Senator De Lima back then na she thought she would not come out alive and nalulungkot lang siya because that happened. Pero what's amazing about former Senator Leila De Lima is that even after that, she maintained her room inside the Camp Crame. Hindi siya lumipat even though with the offers of home furloughs. Actually, the administration offered her to be transferred to another detention cell inside the Camp Crame. She was offered to stay in the former detention facility of Senator Bong Revilla, but she refused that, saying that her kittens, her cats would not be able to locate her inside the Camp Crame. So that really shows how De Lima was able to adapt her environment inside the detention center. But unfortunately, yes, isa yun sa mga patunay at mahalaga na po-point out natin ito sa mga ganitong conversation that life was never easy for De Lima, legally speaking, and even with the threats against her life.
Jairo, you and Lian have been working really hard, no? The entire day, and of course, even before today. It's been a privilege to work with you on this special coverage. I think it's time to let you go. Maybe take something. Jairo Boliedo,
thank you, John.
Thank you very much. Reporting from Novotel in Quezon City. And on that note, we will wrap our special coverage on the last Leila de Lima case. We commit to you that we will be covering Senator de Lima's first few days of freedom. So follow us on all Rappler social media platforms, on Rappler YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, now known as X. Thank you for joining us over the last 3 hours. We'd like to thank Dean Tony Lavinia, Human Rights Watch's Carlos Conde, and former presidential advisor Ronald Llamas for joining us in this special coverage. My name is John Neri. Thank you and good night.